welcome, and I want to call the November 20th zoning meeting of the Charlotte City Council to order. And I'd like to have everyone introduce themselves, and we'll start with Ms. Watlington.
Good evening. I'm Victoria Watlington, your Charlotte City Council member representing District 3. Happiest of Thanksgiving to you.
Good evening and happy Thanksgiving. Dante Anderson, District 1.
Sorry, Picard, District 6.
Braxton Winston, Mayor Pro Tem.
Vi Lyles, serving as mayor.
Liz Babson, Assistant City Manager.
Happy holidays. My name is Renee Johnson, and I'm honored to represent District 4.
Dimple Ashmera, serving you as your at-large member.
Billy Tons, Deputy City Clerk.
All right. We do have two council members that are not going to be able to join us. They're not well. So Mr. Graham is going to be absent, and Mr. Driggs, we hope that you get better soon. Before we begin the zoning meeting, I would like to make a statement on behalf of the Charlotte City Council and the Office of the Mayor regarding the CMPD arrest incident that took place on November 13, 2023. By now, many in the Charlotte community have seen the bystander video of arrests by CMPD officers that occurred on November the 13th. Many in the community have shared their reaction to the video with us, and we understand that there are many unanswered questions related to this incident. As your elected representatives, we continue to pledge to be transparent in the review of this matter. To that end, as Chief Jennings has acknowledged, the city has sought the public release of all relevant body-worn camera video in our possession. We anticipate that this release will be made soon. In the meantime, we recognize and respect that all parties involved are entitled to due process. Release of the relevant body-worn camera video represents the next step in the process of our review. So that is a statement of the Charlotte City Council, and thank you for allowing me that moment to represent the people that think deeply about this all the time, that we recognize as a city how important it is to communicate and engage as we do, as we try to do very well for all of our benefits. So with that, I'm going to ask for our invocation, and we're going to have that invocation from Councilmember Watlington.
If you'd like, please bow your heads. Gracious Heavenly Father, we thank you as we recognize a period of Thanksgiving this week. We thank you for your many blessings. We thank you for an opportunity to love on each other and serve in particular, Lord God. And we just ask that as we come before you this week to celebrate all that you have done and all that we have, not only in our families, but in our city, in our community, and in our country, God, that you enable us to continue to serve in a way that is pleasing and in a manner that you and ourselves can be proud of. So we ask tonight that you give us wisdom, unity, and you allow us to have a successful meeting in such a way that can move our city forward. Amen.
Amen. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance if you choose. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So with that, let's talk about what it means to come to a City of Charlotte zoning meeting. The process begins with applications that are submitted to the planning staff for review. There are two types of cases on the agenda: decisions and hearings. The decisions are cases for which a public hearing has been held and no further public comment is made. It is a discussion by the council members on the dais. We also have hearings tonight, and anyone wishing to speak in regards to a hearing, please do so now with the city clerk, because we try to make sure that we get all of the names in order. So if you also recognize that when we begin our hearings that the staff will give a presentation. The petitioner and those in favor get 3 minutes combined to present the case unless there are opponents that are signed up to speak. Or if the staff is in opposition, the petitioner gets 10 minutes, opponent gets 10 minutes, and the petitioner then gets a 2-minute rebuttal. If no one is opposed or signed up to speak, the staff provides a short presentation. The public hearing is closed, and the next public hearing is open. The petition then goes to the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission for review and recommendations. And now I'd like to ask the chair to introduce the members of the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Council. My name is Douglas Welton, and I serve as the Chairman of the Zoning Committee of the Planning Commission. Allow me to introduce the fellow members of the committee that are here with us tonight. Will Russell, Shauna Neely, Rick Winokur, Terry Lansdale, Rebecca Wilden, and Clayton Seeley. The Zoning Committee will meet on Tuesday, December 5th at 5:30 p.m. here at the Government Center. At that meeting, the Zoning Committee will discuss and make recommendations on the petitions that have a public hearing here tonight. The public is welcome to that meeting, but please note, it is not a continuation of the public hearing that is being held here tonight. Prior to that meeting, you are welcome to contact us and provide input. You can find contact information for each petition on the city's website at charlotteplanning.org. Thank you, and back to you, Madam Mayor.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Welton. So I should have said something about this earlier when we started off with introductions. Tonight is Braxton Winston, as Mayor Pro Tem's last official zoning meeting. I want to say to you that having had to work with Braxton for the last 3-4 years has been a remarkable experience. I remember Braxton as young and vibrant and argumentative but someone that I have grown to respect in so many ways. The commitment that you make around processes that we have, your reminder to us that policy is the way that we can guide stability in our community. The way that you've allowed your children to be a part of what you do has been truly significant. So kids, if you're watching, this is your dad's last zoning meeting, so he can come home on Monday nights, every Monday night, and be with you. Braxton has moved his mom and his grandmom down here. That says a lot about our city. It says a lot about who you are, and we're grateful, and we give you a round of applause this last zoning meeting. But he'll make his comments later. No, if you'd like
Come
to
back in 2 weeks.
Come back in 2 weeks. So, with that, our next step in our zoning meeting is the staff has given us a list of deferrals and withdrawals, and I'm going to ask Mr. Patton if he would read those for us, and then we would take a motion for acceptance and removal from the agenda for these items.
Certainly, thank you. So we do have a handful of decisions and hearings requesting a withdrawal, deferral, one requesting a withdrawal. First is item number 3, 2022-096, Kairoy Residential, requesting a deferral for the decision to December 18th. Item 5, 2022-161 by the Pulte Group, also requesting a deferral of decision to December. And we have item number 15, 2022-193 by the Brown Group Incorporated. They are actually requesting a withdrawal of their petition. And then item 16, 2022-134, requesting a deferral of the decision to December 18th. And then item 17, 2023-013 by Toll Brothers Apartment Living, also requesting a deferral to December 18th of their decision. Then we get into some hearings. We've got 3 of those listed out. Those are item number 21, 2023-033 by CRD Elizabeth LLC. Item 22, 2023-037 by Shinville Ridge Partners LLC, also Courtney Sloan. And then item 23, 2023-080 by True Homes LLC. Those 3 items requesting a deferral of their hearing to December 18th as well. And those are all that we have on that part of the agenda.
Do I have a motion to accept the deferrals and withdrawals?
So moved.
Second. Motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor, please raise your hand. I believe that's unanimous. Thank you.
And Madam Mayor, one thing we'll note, items 3 and 5 will now come off of our consent agenda because they were just deferred. So we will have items 3 through 14 with the exception of item 3 and 5.
All right. So we're at this point where we have consent agenda items, and as you have noted, as Mr. Pettin has noted, that 3 and 4, will come off of, and 3 and 5. Odd numbers, right? Okay, rezoning, those items will not be on our consent agenda. Rezoning items that are on our consent agenda may be considered in one motion unless there is someone that on the council would like to have it pulled out for a separate vote. But we do have criteria for these petitions, and they must meet the following criteria. There had to be no public opposition to the petition at the hearing. The zoning committee recommended approval, and there are no changes after the zoning committee's recommendation, and staff recommends approval. Are there any separate items that the council would like to have for a separate vote?
Move to approve 4 and 6 through 14.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Hearing any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor of the approval? I have to read, Mr. Baker, do I need to read every item?
You do not.
Okay, thank you. Not having to read every petition item. All in favor of the approval of the consent agenda for the planning decisions, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? I think that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the next item on our agenda for this is to begin our process beyond the consent item agendas. So I think we start at item 15. 18. I know 18 has changes for. So Mr. Patton, would you go through the changes on item 18?
Certainly. Let's get there on the PowerPoint. Give me 1 second.
Changes after.
There we go. All right, so this petition, item 2022-147, does have changes after the zoning committee. They did change the following notes, which are related to commitments for the Loop project in South Park. The first one is that the petitioner shall provide a right-of-way easement for the Loop area commitments along Piedmont Road Drive and Fairview Road prior to the issuance of a new building permit or change of use permit within Development Area B for any retail or EDE uses. As part of this easement, petitioner will also allow the city to install Loop-branded furniture on the site near the corner of Fairview and Piedmont Road Drive, otherwise mutually coordinated through the city's funding and installation. The other note that was changed is that prior to an issuance of a certificate of occupancy for new construction within Development Area A of less than or equal to 50,000 square feet of gross floor area, that the petitioner shall fund a crosswalk and traffic signal improvements at Piedmont Road Drive, including branded loop design. And then the final note change was prior to the issuance of a certificate of occupancy for new construction in Development Area C or D, or new construction exceeding 50,000 square feet of gross floor area in Development Area A, the petitioner shall contribute funds sufficient to construct 707 linear feet of loop improvements payable to South Park Partners. That contribution shall be based on a timely construction estimate provided by a third-party contractor, mutually agreed upon by the petitioner and South Park Partners. They amended those notes in coordination with South Park community. Staff believes that they provide additional clarity and were developed in coordination with that group and do not warrant additional review by the zoning committee. We'll be happy to take any questions you might have.
Move to not send back.
Second.
I have a motion and a second not to send the items back because they do not warrant that. So any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all in favor of not sending it back, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you very much.
Move to approve. Adopt and
We
approve.
have- And item 18, we have a motion to approve the approximately 9 acres bound by the south side of Fairview Road and the east side of Piedmont Road. It's in District 6. Mr. Bakari.
Yeah, I won't belabor the point, but everything you just heard and more is a great example, once again, of the petitioner, developer, the neighborhood associations, the overall MSD, everyone coming together and working together on something so everyone gets a win. So I'm appreciative to all that work.
All right. Any other comment? Hearing none, all in favor of the petition, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Thank you. The next item is item 2023-443 by Drakeford Community for approximately 7 acres south of Allegheny and west of Ashley Road. The zoning committee recommends denial. The staff recommends approval. Do I have a motion to accept? I should have accepted the petition to be consistent with our policy for also the other. So we'll include both of these in our...
I said,
Oh, did you
I
say
said
it both?
adopt
Thank
and
you.
approve.
All right, thank you very much. So we have do I have a motion on item 19?
Motion to approve.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
What-
No, you're fine.
Motion to approve the petition and adopt our staff's consistency statement as our own.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion?
Yeah, just wanted to
Ms.
add.
Watlington, followed by Mr. Mitchell. Ms.
Yeah, I just
Watlington?
wanted to lift this one up. I did send it over to Councilmember Driggs because I'd love for staff to just speak to real briefly this crosswalk situation because what our policy currently, or I'm sorry, ACM Babson, certainly I'll defer to you, but I wanted to lift this item up because it's really a policy item, which I think I understand is how the zoning committee got to where they were in terms of wanting an additional crosswalk, but staff being unsupportive of a crosswalk. So separate from this petition, I'm supportive of this petition, but I did want to make sure that that was lifted up so that we could put that in the appropriate place.
Yeah, do you want us to talk through that?
Yes,
Brooke?
please.
Okay, yeah.
Evening. Jay Carpenter with CDOT. So we don't have a written policy in place for approving or denying crosswalks during rezonings, but we do have a policy for evaluating requests for crosswalks from the public, and we apply the similar criteria to a location like this. And in our evaluation, it fails to meet a couple of criteria that we would usually consider. One being proximity to an existing signalized crossing location. Also, the land use context in this area and the driver for pedestrian crossings is not there at this location. So to be consistent with driver and pedestrian expectations, this was a location that we did not deem need for a crossing here. And so that was kind of our evaluation process for this. There's a few more steps that we would complete once a development is on the ground to evaluate the need. But since there's no traffic from this development, nor demonstrated need, we can't evaluate those pieces, but the ones that we can, we did evaluate and determined that the department would prefer to have pedestrians cross at the existing signalized location here.
Gotcha. And just as a quick follow-up, I would appreciate to hear the perspective from the zoning committee, just because I want folks to understand what it is that we're dealing with.
I recognize the chair of the zoning committee.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The discussion, which was pretty much captured generally well in the zoning committee report, is that there were concerns about the crosswalk in that petition. This was also a site plan amendment, so previous to this petition round in our work session, things had been approved, including that particular part of the petition where the crosswalk was. The site plan amendment was adding a small piece of property that was not including that crossing. So the members of the commission mainly followed in with the notion of there needed to be some additional understanding about the crosswalk and its necessity. I was the minority on this particular one, and I'll speak for myself in that I believe that this issue had already left the gate in the fact that we had previously approved this work.
Thank you. So as we think about how we consider items like this coming out of rezoning, since it doesn't sound like there's an existing policy specific to rezonings and how to evaluate that, I just wanted to put that before the body if that's something that we want to dig into. But other than that, that's all the discussion I had on this one.
All right, thank you. Mr. Mitchell?
Madam Mayor, Councilman Wallace addressed the concern I had, so I wanted to hear the feedback from the zoning committee, so thank you.
All right, are there any other comments regarding this petition? We have a motion for approval. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any, and I believe that's unanimous. So our next item is petition 2022 by Tribute Company for approximately 182.7 acres on the south side of Interstate 485 South Interchange. It's in District 4, and the zoning committee recommended denial, and the staff recommends approval. Do I have a motion for adoption or approval of this item, or a denial?
Motion to approve.
All right. We have a motion to approve. Do I have a second? Second. We have a second. So we have that on the floor. So that motion includes the statement of the staff consistency statement as our own. So now, is there any discussion? Ms. Johnson.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I also would like to hear from the zoning committee regarding the denial. If you could just elaborate more on why it wasn't recommended, please.
So the chair, we're going to recognize the chair.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Again, with this particular petition, it was a divided vote, 4-3. We did see this petition on a couple of occasions, and basically it fell into two groups of folks. The three folks who were in favor of the petition believed that this created a large number of housing units because it is 1,900 plus housing units. Those of us who were opposed to the petition believed that the proximity, more than 3/4 of a mile up John Adams Road, made this too far away from transportation, and there were significant amount of transportation improvements that were being proposed for that. But we believe that it was basically too far and hidden away from a major thoroughfare, and that in the end that may cause some issues. So those were the two ideas that kind of floated through the room and got us to the place that we were. Is that sufficient?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. So I just want to say that the petitioner has worked very closely with myself and the residents, the University City partners, and this is the kind of petition, in my opinion, that we want to see more of in the city. They're dedicating land for a school. They're dedicating land for a park. There's affordable housing component. There's traffic improvements. So this is one of those, in my opinion, petitions. Yes, there's 182 acres, but the area is going to change. And they are allowing tree save more than we would get with by right development. So I'm happy to support this. Another thing, I know we deferred the meeting or the decision last month because I wanted to see the tree canopy report. We received that tree canopy report, and this area does have sufficient tree canopy. I think we're at 57% in this area. So I think that we've taken a very thoughtful approach and a responsible approach before making this decision. So I will be supporting this petition. Thank you.
All right. Any other comments regarding the petition? Hearing none. All in favor of the petition, please raise your hand. Anyone opposed? No, it's unanimous. So I wanted to say this completes our decision point. I wanted to also say to everyone who's watching us or in attendance, it is time for me to go and frost a cake for Thanksgiving. And Mr. Winston is completely capable of all of the work that's going to continue here, but I do have grandchildren that love chocolate cake. So with that, thank you everyone in Charlotte. Thank you for those that help us be the place that we are. And happy holidays. No, happy Thanksgiving. Let's go with it one at a time. Happy Thanksgiving to everyone. Thank you very much for your attendance tonight.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I look forward to walking you out to your car.
I think James got that.
We'll move on to agenda item number 24, rezoning petition 2019-109 by Miriam E. Franco. You don't see 2019s too much nowadays. Located on approximately 8.15 acres on the south side of Park Drive, west of Remount Road and north of Watson Drive in Council District 3, Ms. Watlington's district. The current zoning is N2B, neighborhood 2B, and the proposed zoning is I2CD, general industrial conditional. Staff does not recommend approval of this petition, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 10 minutes to present.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So our first petition this evening, 2019-109, it's about 8 acres off of Remount on Parker Drive. It is currently zoned Neighborhood 2B, was previously zoned R22MF prior to the UDO, and they are proposing an I2 conditional zoning district. The policy map does recommend, you can see Neighborhood 2 for the majority of the south side of Parker Drive. You can see on the north side is predominantly manufacturing logistics place types for their recommendation, and then one lone parcel at the end of Parker also recommended for manufacturing logistics. So this petition is mainly just conditions, site conditions, not a site plan. The current use that's on the property, we are working through the rezoning to remedy some code enforcement items. And so this particular use has been in operation for quite some time on the property. And again, the rezoning would be an effort to bring the property into conformance with the ordinance, correct the violations, and get the property to a zoning district that would allow the continued use. I will say the conditions are very tailored to what's existing on the site, which is a contractor's office with some accessory storage. There is also a request on there for automobile repair with storage. Those are the items that we are working through with code enforcement to get cleaned up. This rezoning would allow them to continue to operate and operate within compliance with the ordinance. So any other standards that they would need to meet for screening, buffering, those types of things would have to come into place for that use to be able to continue on the site. But any other use that could be considered under I-2 would not be allowed without another rezoning. So this really does just lock in what's out there now and allows those uses to continue in compliance with the ordinance. So one of the things that we do want to go back and talk through a little bit in these petitions, a lot of times in ways are a little more challenging than some of the others that we just took action on earlier this evening with some of the decisions, mainly because we get a little bit caught between trying to continue to foster opportunities for small business and when our land use policy doesn't necessarily line up with existing uses. We find as a staff that sometimes we're kind of caught in between policy and trying to be, work with community business owners and find opportunities and solutions to allow some of those businesses to continue. So in this case, again, the policy does recommend, you can see most of that south side of Parker Drive is residential, and then the north side is mainly industrial. So, the petition itself, as we mentioned, really does lock in just what's out there today. So no real proliferation of new industrial uses could take place on the site without coming back through council. So, I will say we've struggled a bit as a staff with, the conditions being what they are, the policy being what it is, and it's one of those that we're kind of stuck in between, like I said, that policy and that, existing use and trying to work with some of our small business owners. So, we're going to continue to look through this one and look over this one and work with the petitioner, work with Councilmember Watlington, incoming Councilmember Brown, and try to get some solutions that we feel potentially could work should council decide to approve this, just to ensure that, again, those proliferation of other uses would not be something that could happen, which, again, I feel like we're at a little bit of that point, but I think there's a few other things we'd like to continue to work through. So with that, I know we have the petitioner here to answer any questions. I don't know if we have a formal presentation, but I do know they are with us this evening and did sign up to speak. So I think we'll turn it over at this time to them and to council if they have any questions of the property owners. But that will conclude our presentation, and we'll take any questions following the petitioner's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Rosalina Ortiz and Miriam Franco, you have 10 minutes combined. You can make your way down to that microphone over there.
And we can go back to the staff's presentation if we don't have a petitioner presentation. Oh, you can come right up and down again. So you'll have 10 minutes, and you'll have a little timer right here that will count down for you.
Well, good night, I guess, and thank you for this opportunity. I will read my thing. This is my daughter, Rosalind. My name is Miriam, and we are the property owners, 1705 and 1701 Parker Drive. I'll say is most of the 80% of property is owned by me and Rosalind and my partner, Danny Ortiz. I'll read the rest. I think most of the stuff, he say it, but we own almost like 7 acres of property. Historically served as a construction, storage, and parking and car shop. As you may aware, the Duke Power Plant stands just behind my premise. The tenants in my property have not only provided a value contribution to our community, but have also generated numerous well-paid jobs. Those tenants are concrete contractors, painters, and landscaping contractors, roof contractor. All those people park their trucks in there since, Charlotte coming really tight to find parking lots and a neighbor, so, they cannot park their stuff, and that's why I serve in this kind of small business. Having lived in the country for 26 years, I take great pride of the journey that led me to become a property owner. As a single mother of 4, 2 adults in college, 16 and 12-year-old. My English, of course, is not my first language. I encouraged the property to hard work, initially cleaning houses and working like a nanny. The stability has provided to my family is immeasurable. In light of the involvement needs our neighborhood and the current usage of my property, can you help me?
Yeah, diligently working.
Through the planning process to secure a zoning amendment that better align with the community and character. I believe this adjustment will not only benefit my family, but also contributed to possibility to the growth and the prosperity of the local area. I appreciate your time and attention to the matter, and thank you, and I want you to think about it. And
I'm just here to support my mom in the process. She's kind of been working really hard trying to rezone this, so I'm here to just support her. This is more of is all that we have to for her retirement or anything. There's no retirement plan. This is it. So she's been working really hard, and kudos to her for doing this and coming up here to talk in front of y'all. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Watlington?
Yes, I just had a couple questions for staff. I remember when you reached out a long time ago, so I'm glad to see that you got to this point, and thank you certainly to our staff members for walking alongside you. I just have a couple of questions as it relates to our process. Making sure that I understand, this parcel was designated into B as part of our kind of remapping. Is that correct?
Correct, yeah, and I looked back at the old land use policy as well for this area, and I think it's always maintained some form of a residential recommendation for that south side, and that was based on the existing zoning, which was that R22, now N2B. So that's where it captured really the existing zoning aspect of it and kept those industrial uses where it was already zoned industrial on the north side and then this side. But I don't know, it didn't necessarily take into account, I think, some of the existing uses on the site. It went more with the zoning, which is why also we're here, because that zoning didn't support some of the uses initially on the site. So I can see why it didn't necessarily get caught in that view of maybe recommending this for something that was more industrial based, since that was the existing use. So I think it's just one of those scenarios where we're in that unfortunate situation of having a property zoned for a use that wasn't, wasn't initially allowed, and then the zoning capture for the policy mapping then just reflected that back as neighborhood 2 versus what was out there, which is M&L. That's why I think you also see at the end of the road there, you can see this parcel right here as industrial uses on it. And then when we get to the policy map, you can see it was recommended for that. So it recognized those, but didn't necessarily capture those.
Okay, and that kind of gets at what my follow-up question was. Is it possible that this is going to happen in other parts of the city?
Yeah, it's certainly possible, and I think that's where we are going through a pretty significant review, particularly for the efforts for alignment rezoning, which we're getting into next year, to not just look at the existing zoning and the adopted place type, but really look at what the use is on the property, what are the historic uses of it, and see if there's any, kind of mismatch in that process. Again, this one being that it was zoned R22 first, we probably would still recognize it as an existing industrial use versus residential. We don't necessarily, what we would probably do in that situation is just leave it misaligned versus change that block of the policy map. Now, this rezoning, should it get approved, could change the policy map to that purple color for M&L, but that would be something that we could either reevaluate when we adopt a new map in a year or two and say, well, we know that the existing use is M&L, we changed it through the rezoning process. Do we want to long-term think beyond that and refer it back to a residential use long-term? That's something we can get into a little bit further down the road, but for now, it will likely stay with that residential recommendation unless this rezoning changes it.
And is this rezoning and others that might be like it, whether it was a misaligned use initially or it was something that changed as a result of the policy map, are these rezonings at cost to the landowner?
Yeah, and this one did start, you can see by the petition number, several years ago, so this is beyond, when we were even thinking about what place types would be on the map and all of that. So we do have a few where we've run into that issue. We had a couple in, I think, either District 4 or ETJ north of District 4, where we had some industrial properties translate to a district that didn't support those industrial uses. They had to go through rezone. So we are looking at, are there ways that we can identify those and maybe shepherd them through on the city side? Is there other alternatives? But for now, they're still being done through the private side of the petitioner.
I got you. Okay. Yeah, because I would hate for somebody's already operating and then because of a city action, then they have to incur costs to get back in compliance.
We have seen a good bit of those. Like I said, we took almost a whole business park through individual rezonings over the last few months to correct some of those. So still things that we're finding, that we just didn't anticipate when we went through adopting both the new map and UDO. So.
Sure. So Liz, I don't know where we are with those right now or how many are in the queue, but I definitely would like us to explore how do we help support landowners or parcel owners that were mapped into something and now they've got to pay to get it back in compliance. If there's something that we could do on that end, I think that would be appropriate. That's all.
Thank you. Ms. Ashmira?
Thank you. I agree with the last point Councilmember Watlington made. Because we all know that the rezoning process is expensive and it's lengthy. So how do we make this process fair for everyone? I have a couple of questions for the petitioner here. For staff. Ms. Ortiz, thank you so much for sharing your journey.
Thank you.
And in sharing your journey about becoming a property owner. and how you're building a generational wealth. I think those are the kind of stories we want to hear. So thank you so much. It's great to see your daughter here supporting.
Thank you.
I can relate to some of that experience with my mother being an immigrant, so thank you.
Thank you.
I'm actually struggling with this one. I read through why staff does not recommend approval of this petition. Maybe if you can help me understand, because I do see M&L Manufacturing Logistics in the area. I mean, it's not too far from the site. And I'm reading through the rationale for recommendations, and I still, after reading that rationale that you have here for recommendations, I'm not coming to the same conclusion here. So maybe
Certainly.
if you can just
Yeah,
shed more light here.
I think generally for staff, when we looked at it, we're kind of looking at it from purely that policy perspective of this long-term, looking at residential uses and how this, is a misalignment from that policy recommendation and place type recommendation. And when we look at making changes from residential to an industrial place type, there's, it's a little bit more of a scrutinized process because that does leave behind the potential for some uses that you wouldn't necessarily want adjacent to residential. Now, do I think that this petition locked in some things that build in some protections? I do. I think maybe there's a few other things we can explore with ensuring that the use doesn't continue to, necessarily expand towards some of those residential uses, maybe to the west and south. And maybe if we put some of those conditions built in and kind of put a dividing line between where they would need to kind of start and stop on the property, we might be able to look at this and reevaluate some of this. So I think that's where we're going to probably take the next step, be after this hearing, and really see if we can make sure that there's some things that, should it be approved, that are dialed in to where it really just keeps things almost as they are today, with the room for a little bit of expansion as needed, but with limitations on the encroachment that could be provided on those N2 properties, both short-term and long-term. So, I think this is one that, again, we definitely struggled with. I'll be fully transparent in that. And I think we want to continue to take a look at it after we get through tonight's hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Patton. I think we both agree that we struggle with this one, so I'd like to see continued work on this where some conditions can be placed where we are comfortable with rezoning without encroaching neighborhood too. What is the use of the site? I didn't quite catch that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, it's contractor's office with some storage for vehicles, so space for, as she mentioned, trucks to park for contractors that are on the site or working from the site. And then there was, and this is where I might need some help from y'all about some of the auto repair that was being done. Is that still on the property next door? The auto repair?
Yes.
Yeah, so there's the contractor's office and storage is this area, correct?
Yes.
And this is where some of the auto repair was?
Yes.
Okay.
And I have,
I think I'm good.
okay.
Yeah, does that answer?
I want to mention.
I'm okay. I think he answered it.
Okay.
So those are the two, and those would be the only two
And
that
I
would
know
be
you mentioned
allowed.
truck parking. I think this is one of the rezoning petitions we need. We actually see the reverse, where many of our rezoning petitions are going from I-1 or I-2 to something else. So this is actually the other way around. And in the city, we are growing at such a fast pace, 14, 15 largest city, and we need more industrial land, and we hear that often. And we are struggling with truck parking as well. So I think there is a solution that we can find where we can preserve, or not preserve, but at least find more industrial land, but at the same time protect our neighborhoods. So I look forward to some recommendation from you. Thank you so much. And with that, that's all I have. I'm ready to close if no other questions.
I have a question. Mr. Patton, does the petition's current form basically ensure that only the current use would be allowed kind of in perpetuity?
Correct.
So also, what kind of room would the business owners have if, let's say, their business is successful, though,
Yeah.
and they need to make improvements? Would this be kind of onerous to, I wouldn't even necessarily say grow, but to improve their properties?
Yeah, so that's some of the balance I was discussing with Councilmember Ashmir, is if we can, allow some of those things, if they do continue to grow and be successful, which I think everybody wants to see those businesses continue and have growth opportunities, make sure that there is room to expand if they need to, and, but also protect those residential uses that could be around it. So maybe there's just some buffer language in the conditions that make sure that we have enough space and separation of those uses. They would have to do that regardless from the ordinance, but can we look at what's required and then say maybe take it maybe a little bit above that? So I do think there's
the current form of the petition. Is it allow for that?
Yeah. So once it would get approved, should it get approved under that I-2 conditional, somebody could come in and if they wanted to start over on that site and build a brand new building and a nice enclosed parking area, they could certainly do all that without any, just by meeting then the ordinance itself. So this would allow those uses either in the current form or in a new updated form.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion is made and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That's unanimous to close the public hearing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll move on to item number 25, rezoning petition 2021-277 by Bill Dom LLC, located on approximately 0.4 acres on the east side of Providence Road, north side of Phil All Place in the south of South Colonial Avenue in Council District 6, Mr. Bakari's district. The current zoning is OFC Office Flex Campus, and the proposed zoning is NC Neighborhood Center conditional. We do have community opposition to this rezoning, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 10 minutes, and then the community will have 10 minutes to split as well.
All right, thank you. 2021-277, it's about 0.4 acres off Providence Road and Phil All Place. It is currently zoned OFC, which is our Office Flex campus. Proposed zoning is for neighborhood center with some conditions. The adopted place type, you can see, we'll stay on this slide for just a few. This is part of a larger campus place type, although this building itself isn't really related in terms of use or any kind of ownership to the larger campus recommendations that are around it that are mainly medical-based. So this did get pulled in. We are seeing the request to go to neighborhood center, which you can see is recommended just to the south of Phil All Place. So staff did feel that neighborhood center, if the rezoning got approved and it did get changed to that place type, that it would still, make some sense and provide some compatibility in the area. So when we get into the proposal itself, it is, again, another petition that is primarily proposing site conditions, and I do understand that some of these conditions came from conversations with the folks in the community, which I know we'll hear from both petitioner and community members this evening, so they can certainly elaborate on some of that. But just to state what's in there, the permitted uses under NC would be for live-work dwelling units, duplexes, multifamily dwelling attached, which is primarily your townhome type product, multifamily dwelling stacked, which is your standard multifamily apartment, townhomes, art gallery, financial institution, office, personal service establishments, coffee or tea shop, wine shop, retail goods showroom. All other uses other than those listed above would be prohibited. And then also it does specify that any commercial or business establishment located on the property must close for business by 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 6 p.m. on Sunday. Staff does recommend approval of this petition. We do have no outstanding issues to work through. As I mentioned, it is inconsistent with that campus place type, but we do feel that neighborhood center does provide some compatibility with the place type that's recommended just across Phil All Place. And we will take any questions you may have following presentations by the petitioner and members of the community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Karen Wingate, you have 10 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mayor Pro Tem, council members, staff, and commission. I am speaking for the petitioner, who bought this property in May of 2021 with the idea that she would build a small commercial building on this corner with a bakery on the bottom and 1 or 2 levels of office above. When we first met with the community and showed plans for this building, there was pushback. And we agreed to go back and look again at the property and what we could do with the property. During the time that the petitioner has been considering development options, we've had the UDO take effect, and that called for campus zoning on this property. As you know, campus is one of the most restrictive when it comes to uses which are neighborhood friendly. So in lots of discussions with planning, we determined that pursuing neighborhood center zoning with conditions would allow the uses which would be the best for the residential neighborhood on Circle. We had conversations both individually and in small groups with those neighbors, and we thought that we had captured all of their requested conditions in the revised petition. So we're certainly willing to have more discussions with them, but we did limit the business hours for any businesses that may go there. There are some townhome developers who are interested in that area because it's right across Phil All from the park, and as you know, Phil All has been closed for the expansion to Circle. So we're certainly willing to have more input, but we feel like we've met the standards that were set for us to this point. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much. V.D. Dolinaire and Steve Cranford, you have 10 minutes between the both of you.
She's not here. Sam here.
She's not up here.
Good evening. My name is Steve Cranford. I live at 123 Circle Avenue, a single-family home that's the closest residence to the property at 215 Providence Road. I have owned the house with my wife since 1996. 215 Providence Road contains 2 properties. The first is a 2-story house that was converted years ago into a photography studio. Its owner recently died, and the business is no longer operating. Behind it is a duplex that's closest to my house. The site has mature hardwood trees and was always quiet when it was occupied. The studio and residents have always been good neighbors. Soon after the property was last sold, the new owner held a community meeting where she outlined plans to tear down the 2 buildings and create a cafe, retail space, and offices with a small parking deck. Over the following 18 months, the plan changed to have a cafe and residential townhomes, which we largely embraced. Now the owner is selling the property and is requesting this rezoning. There is no new site plan for it. Apparently, the rezoning request is merely an effort to maximize the potential sales price of the parcel. Speaking on behalf of the neighborhood, I oppose the rezoning request in its current form. By switching from the current office zoning to neighborhood center conditional, the height limit of a new structure will increase. The minimum setbacks on the rear and sides can shrink to 0. The petitioner's notes on the rezoning do not address these issues, which are clearly a concern to our neighborhood. The petitioner's notes include a list of permitted uses, which are commercial operations such as the coffee shop, wine shop, and retailing. The petitioner says any commercial space would close by 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday and 6 o'clock on Sundays. But at the community meeting last year, we were told the proposed cafe would close by 7 o'clock, except on special occasions. Such a late night closing time is not acceptable to the neighbors. The homes on our block of Circle Avenue are used commercial buildings nearby. I have a large dental practice on one side of my house and a bank and a small doctor's office behind it. Similar medical and office buildings lie behind my neighbors' homes. None of these businesses have night hours. Their operations cease around 5 o'clock. By and large, they make for good neighbors. The 215 Providence site overlooks Colonial Park, which is surrounded by homes and multifamily residences. Having a large development with late-night operations does not fit in with the character of the neighborhood. Now, I see that the planning staff recommends approval of this rezoning, and part of its justification is that, quote, there is a neighborhood center place type recommended adjacent to the site to the south. This site is Colonial Park, which I cannot imagine would ever be commercially redeveloped. So I think this justification for this rezoning has no basis. In order to support a rezoning, we would want to work with the current or future owner on a plan that would reflect our concerns. Without a site plan in place, we don't know how close the new development will encroach on the park or on our homes. We don't know how tall the structure will be, and we don't know whether its operations will affect our enjoyment of our neighborhood. We fully understand the property owner has a reasonable expectation to redevelop it. We would welcome the chance to work with the owner to address our concerns in a revised rezoning request. Until that occurs, we, the neighbors, oppose this rezoning. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, hi, I'm J.D. Dolliner, and I live next door to Steve, and I just have to say ditto to everything he just said. He made my job easy. But we have been in the conversations with the existing owner a couple of times and seen very different projects, including mentioning that if they didn't change the zoning, we might get a crematorium next door. I think they're trying to scare us a little bit. But we don't understand why a zoning change is going to be put in place when a week after they met with us and told us that they had designers who were going to move into these houses and they're going to rehab the houses, and we were all like, yay, then there's a for sale sign in front and there's no rehab going on these houses. So just to give you a little bit more background there, but the bottom line is that we want to protect the park in front of us. We want to protect our neighborhood. Cities are important, and I know that this is very common where you see residential areas, commercial areas to struggle between the two, but it just doesn't seem the right time to change the zoning at this point. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Wingate, you have 2 minutes for a rebuttal.
Thank you very much. As I said, we are interested in having further conversations with the neighbors, but we've had lots of conversations with planning staff, which indicated this would be the best district to pursue. This is 0.4 acres. We are willing to limit height for townhomes to 3 stories, which is typical in the neighborhood. We are willing to limit business hours if there is a business that goes on this property. But again, this is 0.4 acres. So all of the future development will be governed by development standards, including screening and those kinds of things. We're trying to limit the number of uses to those which would be considered acceptable by the community. The conversation about the crematorium came in when we were discussing different but zoning districts which we may pursue. With campus zoning, which came to us through the UDO, we could put a jail there, we could put a bail bondsman, we could put a domestic violence shelter, but we're talking about 0.4 acres. The most sense, given the zoning that exists, is to sell the property to the neighboring dentist's office for parking lots. This is at the corner of Providence Road and Phil All across from a park. It seems like a parking lot would be a waste of this property. So we'd like to make any changes that we can to reasonably allow development on this property. And I appreciate your consideration of our request. We want to be good neighbors, most certainly. We don't want to diminish the fabric of Circle Avenue, and I think that we've spent a lot of time and energy and money figuring out ways not to do that. So we want to be of benefit to them. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bakari?
If you can just hang on 1 sec, ma'am, I'm going to ask you a question after I ask Dave one. Dave, help me just wrap my head around, what should this parcel be in a perfect world post-UDO?
Good question. I would say again, back where we talk about the place types, the campus one was extended down, I think, to frame up the intersection there with Colonial and Providence and Phil All, just to keep those, at least in thought, consistent with other campus-type uses, mainly things that were related to the medical offices that were there. This petition initially started out as a neighborhood services petition per UDO, which we, at the time then, we also thought was generally an appropriate ask. I'm going to go back and see what the previous land use plan proposed this for office as well. So office 1 was the old land use recommendation. So again, this campus is kind of seen as that translation for that office place type, but something that with a neighborhood center outcome, given that it's not really tied related to the campus, I think could be compatible. If there's the right scale and the right mix of uses on there, or limitation of uses, just to provide that general context of having something that could support some of the residents that are there on Circle Avenue without being too, overbearing as a use itself, which I think petitioner tried to get to that point with the conditions. But if there's more work that needs to be done between petitioner and community, we'll certainly facilitate some of those conversations.
Yeah, so that's good enough for now and we'll spend the next several weeks kind of digging into that a little more. But I think the punchline, it's fair to say, for this argument is that there's some gray area, and it's going to depend a bit on kind of, a robust conversation, because it's not just no-brainer, like this should be able to be anything in this bucket, right? It's got to be, we're kind of threading the needle a little bit as we're saying this could be that, which I think that's the important takeaway right now. So I guess the question I have for you, ma'am, is the petitioner, or the owner in this case, is this something that you guys are planning on building, or they are planning on building themselves, or is this a speculative kind of like exit strategy of sorts? Because I think either way is okay, but it will take different paths for us, knowing that last question I just answered.
So initially, she was going to build the commercial building on her own. She hasn't built townhomes. She could participate in building townhomes if that's the way it goes. She has tried to rehabilitate the buildings. The building in the back that was a duplex the interior has been demolished, and we've uncovered wiring and plumbing, as you can imagine, in an older property. The front property, the two-story that was the photo studio, doesn't have any usable systems in it. So there's just no effective way, and there's asbestos and lead, and it's just not a healthy property. So our goal is to get to the highest and best use for this property and be good neighbors.
Yeah. So, and I think that is going to be the balancing act we're going to need to all do together over the next month, because highest and best use in a somewhat speculative rezoning is sometimes tough to accomplish with the neighbors. And again, if this was a perfect UDO world where we said, here's everything you can do in a planning, not deal-making city, I don't think this would be an issue. But one, it's not perfect, and two, even if it was, this is probably a trickier case than most. So all I'd say is we've got some real work to do to figure something out here, because the way you thread that needle is by working with the person who has the project, who's going to show and work with the neighbors to build it. So if we're at a spot where that is completely unknown, I'm going to be more predisposed to making that deeply limited to something that's fair, so these neighbors have a chance to negotiate with whoever's doing the building ultimately. So we'll work together on that, but hopefully we can all circle up after this, just knowing that I don't think just a wide open blank check of sorts is something we can get to on this. Excellent.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Ms. Ajmera.
Thank you. Well, part of my question was addressed earlier in terms of the best use for this site, overall vision for this site. But I know there are two speakers on this. Were you speaking on behalf of the neighborhood or some sort of HOA, or just representing yourself?
Can you please
Maybe if you
answer
could
that
just come
question at the
forward
mic?
and respond to my question.
No, we don't have an HOA where we live. It's, we have sort of a loose neighborhood association that's somewhat active, but we gathered the neighbors to meet with the owner at one point for a
Okay.
community meeting. So
Okay,
I think
so-
I'm speaking on behalf of them because I don't think
Okay,
the
so you're-
concerns I've raised differ from what we raised earlier.
Okay, so you're speaking on behalf of the neighborhood association. Okay.
Definitely not the owner.
Oh, of course, I got that part. I got that part very clear. So, just as a neighborhood association, have you discussed what you would like to see and how you would like to see this site developed?
We'd love for the county to buy it to extend Colonial Park, but I don't think that's likely to happen, given the price tag. Well, like I said, when we met with them, we kind of liked the idea of townhomes primarily in there and this small cafe or whatever. But things, the proposal has changed since then. It's going to be open till 10 o'clock, which means, traffic. You have employees leaving after that point. So, there's nothing around this park that has hours like that. Nothing. It's all residential. So this would be a true exception to that.
That answers. Thank you so much. It is a very small parcel, so, park usually like to go for bigger land, but I appreciate the feedback, and I look forward to seeing continuing conversation and see how you all can come to a middle ground here. Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
The motion is made and properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. We will move on to agenda item number 26, rezoning petition 2023-001, the first of the year by Kai Roy Residential, located on approximately just over 6 acres on the north side of State Street, east of Ambassador Street, and west of Turner Avenue on Council District 2, Mr. Graham's district. The current zoning is I2 General Industrial, and the proposed zoning is MUD CD Mixed Use Development District with a condition. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation. There are no speakers against, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Petition 2023-001 is just over 6 acres north of State Street, east of Ambassador Street, and west of Turner Avenue. Current zoning is ML2. Proposed zoning is MUD CD. The 2040 policy map recommends innovation mixed-use place type. The proposal is for up to 450 multifamily dwelling units along with accessory uses allowed in the MUD district. Building height will be limited to 90 feet. Sets a minimum height of 16 feet for the ground floor uses abutting State Street. Also, that ground floor, they're committing to 30% minimum transparency. Provide an 8-foot planting strip and 8-foot sidewalk along the site's State Street frontage, and also committing to pursuing an off-site sidewalk connection to Stewart Creek Greenway. Also provides an amenity area to include a clubhouse, fitness center, and swimming pool. It is consistent with the innovation mixed-use place type recommendation. Staff recommends approval. There is one outstanding transportation issue. Understand, just learned this afternoon that CDOT is no longer requiring a comprehensive transportation review. So there's just one outstanding issue. And I'll be happy to take any questions after the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you very much. John Carmichael, Tyler Sibley, and Matt Edwards, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Pro Tem, members of the City Council and the Zoning Committee. I'm John Carmichael, and with me tonight is Tyler Sibley. Mr. Edwards couldn't make it. As Mr. Mangum stated, the site contains a little over 6 acres. It's located on the north side of State Street at the intersection of State Street and Gesco Street. These are aerial photographs of the site. As a point of reference, Blue Blaze Brewing, the Stewart Creek Greenway, and Savona Mill are located to the east of the site. The site's currently zoned ML2, which is an industrial zoning district, and the site has been devoted to a fertilizer plant and a warehouse. ML2, MUDO, and N1C zoning surrounds or is near the site. The request is to rezone the site to MUD CD to accommodate a building that could contain up to 450 multifamily dwelling units. As Mr. Mangum stated, the site's located in the innovation mixed-use place type, and the rezoning request is consistent with that place type. This is the plan. There'd be 2 access points from State Street into the building. Parking would be provided in a parking deck that would be wrapped by and screened by the building. An 8-foot planting strip and an 8-foot sidewalk will be installed along the site's frontage on State Street. And the petitioner is committed to work with Mecklenburg County to extend that sidewalk across the county's property to connect to the Stewart Creek Greenway. Mr. Mangum mentioned the minimum floor height of 16 feet along the ground floor of the building facing State Street and their minimum transparency requirements just to enhance the pedestrian experience along State Street. Amenities for residents would be provided. The petitioner would install a bus stop waiting pad along the site's frontage on State Street that would accommodate a future CATS local bus route on State Street. Architectural standards are part of the petitioner's rezoning plan. We appreciate the plan staff's recommendation, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much. Any questions from council? Motion to close the public hearing. Second. The motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand.
Thank you.
That's unanimous. Thank you. We will move on to item number 27, rezoning petition 2023-032 by the Keith Corporation located on approximately 2.43 acres bound by the south side of Lamar Avenue, west of Park Drive, north side of Clement Avenue, and east side of East 5th Street, in Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. The current zoning is MUD O, mixed-use development with an option, and the proposed zoning is MUD O, SPA, mixed-use development with an option with a site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to site and building design. There are no speakers against, so after staff's presentation, Bridget Grant and Patrick Faulkner will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. 2023-032. It's just under 2.5 acres on East 5th and Lamar. The current zoning, as mentioned, is MUD optional. This would fall under a site plan amendment to that previously approved MUD optional. The adopted place type, you can see, is for campus uses on the policy map. The proposal is to take the previously approved rezoning and essentially add health institution to the list of proposed uses. Health institution uses shall be limited to no more than 40 beds for overnight patients. Transportation improvements that are the responsibility of the petitioner would be approved and constructed prior to the release of the first CO. We do have the development areas listed out on here. So development area A is up to 120,000 square feet of gross floor area devoted to office and/or medical office, 3,500 square feet of rooftop outdoor space for EDEE, does also limit hours of operation. And then in development area B, does allow for structured parking, a cell tower that's, I believe, is existing on the site, and 16 townhomes. And then we do have an area for development area C, which preserves a minimum of 3,000 square feet of open space and seating. That's that area that's I believe faces out to the park. And then does limit building height to 85 feet for non-residential buildings and then 70 feet for any residential uses on the site. Staff does recommend approval. Again, this is a site plan amendment that's essentially just adding that healthcare use and a little bit of extra, I think, non-residential space. But we do recommend approval. We do have some issues to work through related to site and building design. We would consider this consistent with the recommendation for the campus place type. And, excuse me, we'll take any questions you have following the petitioner's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Grant. You have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, member of the zoning committee. My name is Bridget Grant. I'm a land use consultant with Moran Van Allen, and it's a pleasure to be here tonight on behalf of the Keith Corp and Patrick Faulkner. As Dave mentioned, this is really just a site plan amendment to allow a use that would let people have admittance for overnight stay, which is currently not permitted on the site. So everything else we're going to be doing is just a technical cleanup of sorts. We've been working for a long time in collaboration with the Elizabeth Community Association to ensure that all of the changes we're making to the site are consistent with their goals for the community and mindful of how this proposed use and the potential for overnight stay interacts with the community. So we really appreciate their willingness to work with us throughout this process. We're also going to be making some other minor modifications to site access. Again, this has been in collaboration with the ECA, and we have their support, and they do intend to send a letter as we wrap this up, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much.
Motion to close?
Second, there's been a motion made and properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any conversations? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. We'll move on to item number 28, rezoning petition 2023-036 by Leon and Jennifer Chisholm, located on approximately 9.23 acres on the east side of Mallard Creek Road, north of Galloway Road, and west of Taverny Parkway in Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is N1A, Neighborhood 1A, and the proposed zoning is UR2CD, Urban Residential Conditional. There is a speaker against this, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 10 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2023-036, it is 9.23 acres. It is on Mallard Creek Road, and this is just north of Gallery Road and west of Taverny Parkway, also just to the north of Lexington Approach Drive, familiar location for some of us following some previous rezonings in the general area. This property is zoned Neighborhood 1A. Proposed zoning, as mentioned, is for UR2 conditional. And adopted place type is for Neighborhood 1 for this area and primarily for the area in general. The proposal would allow up to 72 multifamily attached townhome-style units, would provide an 8-foot planting strip and 12-foot wide multi-use path along the site's frontage, would provide 1 point of access into the site on Mallard Creek Road, also would provide a right turn lane into the site with 100 feet of storage. The petitioner also would provide a minimum of 21,000 square feet of usable common open space that would be amenitized, and then provides walkways to connect all entrances to sidewalks along streets, and also architectural standards, including building materials, have been incorporated into the petition and conditions. As mentioned, staff does not recommend approval of this petition in current form. It is inconsistent with the policy map recommendation for Neighborhood 1. We will continue to work with the petitioner on any changes and continue to evaluate our recommendation as it moves through the process, but that is our recommendation for the hearing this evening, and we will turn it over to the petitioner team and the community to hear from both and answer any questions you may have following their presentations. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anthony Fox, Leon Chisholm, and Matt Langston, you have 10 minutes combined.
All right. Thank you, Dave. Do you have my petitions? Okay, there it is. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, zoning committee, thank you for your service and being here this evening. I'm here on behalf of this rezoning petition 2023-036. It is a rezoning of some property along Mallard Creek Road. The address is actually 11128 Mallard Creek Road. As Dave mentioned, it's about 9.23 acre site. Currently is in 1A, and we are proposing to rezone this property to UR2CD for a proposed multi-family residential development. You can see the surrounding area, and this is the lot that was assembled. The current uses on the lot are really single-family homes that sit on sizable acreage. The proposed site plan is before you. There are some things to discuss with regards to the proposed site plan. It does include a proposed 72 single-family attached dwelling units on this location. The actual unit count, given the acreage, would result in a 7.8 DUA. I'll talk to you a little bit later about some rezonings that have occurred in the area and how this DUA is substantially lower than some rezonings that you have approved in the recent past. It includes a 14-foot property line or existing curb, and currently we proposed a 48 foot maximum height of buildings. Staff has raised that as one of the outstanding issues, and we're prepared to modify that to the 40-foot maximum height requirement that staff has requested. It will contain and meet your ordinance requirements for a minimum of 15% tree save and a minimum of 10% open space. And again, I don't know if you want to go into the details of the plan at this point, but let's talk about the outstanding issues that have been raised by staff. They include an issue with regards to a ADA compliant bus stop at this location. We're prepared to meet that requirement and modify the plan accordingly to satisfy that. There is some issue with regards to staff's discussion with regards to the maximum of 3 units along Mallard Creek Road. There have been a couple of developments. Councilmember Johnson, I'll point you to rezoning petition 2021-146 for you to review that rezoning petition, which was similarly an N1A place type R3 at the time that was rezoned to a UR2, and did in that one include a density, I think, in the neighborhood of 9.2 or 9.2, and there's another rezoning petition that I will point you to, and that's rezoning petition 2022-087, and that was a similar rezoning to UR2 and did have an 11.3 density. There are a host, and I'll share that with you, Councilmember Johnson, with some other rezonings that have occurred in the site. We think this site fits given the location and the area in question, because many of you know that Mallard Creek is a fairly long road and has a myriad of different type uses that exist, including some commercial uses down Mallard Creek Road. There was also a question with regards to visitor parking spaces. Obviously, we will satisfy the visitor parking spaces and meet staff's request for that. And then the maximum building height I mentioned, we will comply with the 40-foot building height. There's an issue with regards to a street connection to the parcel to the north. We have gotten this far as a result of a significant number of public meetings and meeting with the neighbors. And we have addressed the neighbors' concerns where we could. With regards to the staff request for the connection of a parcel to the north, the property owner at that location has requested a fence. The neighbors have requested a fencing of the property, and so that's a little bit inconsistent with the staff's request for a street to go to nowhere. But we're willing to work with staff and continue to work with staff with regards to this request. In the interest of time, these are some proposed elevations. I will say to you that what we've heard and what we have and where we've partnered that we have chosen in this area, and the neighbors are comfortable with our selection of David Weekley Homes as the builder, and they're comfortable with that as it blends with the architectural styles that currently exist on the property. I don't know if you have anything to add with regards to the site plan or not, but yeah.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Council. I'm Matt Langston with Landworks Design Group. A couple of the points that I wanted to make about the land plan is you can see, we tried to make the layout as compact as we could, pressing it towards the center and up towards Mallard Creek Road to provide as much green space as we could adjacent to the single-family neighbors. As Anthony was, the other thing that's I'm kind of excited about on this site is as you come in, there's a large central green, so it creates kind of a sense of place and a community, and there are 3 other open space locations contemplated on this site. Anthony mentioned the street connection to the north. One of the points I wanted to make also, if I back up to the topography. So if you look at all these contour lines, this basically is a ravine. So the further back into the site you get, the harder it is to get from one side to the other. We might be able to provide an easement for possible access there in the future, but the further back in the site you get, the harder it is to physically make it work. And I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
We're here to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much. Dennis Jackson, you have 10 minutes.
Is he speaking again?
My name is Dennis Jackson. This is my wife, Kim. And we're here with regards to the petition. We found out about the existence of the petition last Thursday. We weren't aware of it prior to that. We reached out to the homeowners association in the subdivision that is adjacent to proposed, I guess, construction. Members of our community had reached out to the builder to propose certain additional things with regards to the exterior requirements of the buildings there. So we reached out to our homeowners association management company to try to determine, are we required to, I guess, are we compelled to meet those particular requirements in our subdivision? Because our people had reached out to the builders, say, hey, you need to have a certain type of construction. We just bought our house in August of this year. We did not know about this petition that required certain exterior recommendations. The recommendation that we had an issue with was that the first floor had to be either all brick or all stone, not a stone accent, which is what we have. So we just needed clarification, and we could not get that when we called on Friday. We just got this on Thursday. We called Friday to get clarification. Hey, does this include us or not? So we wanted to get some clarification. No one ever called us on Friday, left a message. So we're here today to try to get some clarification as to whether these brick and stone requirements are going to be, I guess, mandated on us. And we live in the next community. So we weren't sure. We never got clarification. And so that's what we were trying to get today, is try to get some understanding.
Thank you very much. Mr. Fox, you have 2 minutes for rebuttal, and I'll just let you know that any land use changes are only effective in the petitioner's area. They wouldn't bleed over into any other parcels.
And thank you for that. We never got a chance to see the petition.
You give me a number. I don't know if there's anything to address because I think their issues relate to a different development than ours, but I'll be happy to meet with them and talk to him about that and let him understand that the design elements that will be imposed as a result of this petition will not apply to his property.
Right.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any questions or comments from the council? Ms. Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Mr. Fox, you mentioned several of the requirements that the staff is asking for, and it sounded like Mr. Chisholm they're willing to concede with some of them. What's the one that stands out the most for the petitioner?
The one that really creates heartburn, you're right, the petitioner is prepared to meet most of the requests that have been made by staff. The density issue is the one that stands out the most because of the current commitment with the builder that is on board to provide a product that the neighborhood is comfortable with. The density will be necessary to achieve that product and that goal.
So it's currently 72 attached, single family, right? And how many units is the staff proposing? You know?
Staff has not proposed. Staff, and Dave's here, he can talk for staff, but staff has not indicated a number that they're comfortable with. I think what I hear from staff is a concern about the place type, that this UR2 in what is now in 1A area that's on the place type as a residential property, and this use and this configuration and what heretofore had been single-family residential homes is the big issue for them.
Right. So let me say to the staff, thank you. Mr. and Mrs. Jackson, welcome to District 4. There's quite a bit of history near this development. So that's what you're feeling, and I'm happy about that. So, and I can give you guys this map. I'm the district rep for District 4, and Mallard Creek, this whole area in District 4 is just inundated with growth. So I've been very cautious and deliberate about pushing for a strategic and responsible development. And if you were here earlier, you heard me thank the petitioner for that type of development. Mr. Chisholm lives in District 4, and he's very engaged with the residents. He's a part of the newly formed District 4 Coalition. He's met with the Lexington residents, and if you all recall, Lexington is the area where the historical denial was, where we decided that recently. So there are standards that the neighborhood is asking for that do apply just to this development. But I hope that, I appreciate staff's raising that bar and asking those questions, and I hope that we can continue to work together with the petitioner to come to some happy medium. As you said, the residents are not opposed to this, which is a win. It's a success for any developer. So you should pat yourself on the back, Mr. Chisholm. That tells the quality of this development. So I look forward for you all to continue to work together so that we can move forward. And I'll make sure that you have my card so you all can reach out to me, because for the record, they didn't reach out to me or they would have heard back. Thank you. Thank you.
Ms.
A
Edgemere?
motion to close?
Ms. Edgemere?
Okay.
Thank you. So, a couple of questions for Mr. Patton.
Yes.
I was looking at staff's recommendations, and is this 8 dwelling units per acre?
Yeah, about there. I think it comes in about 7.8 to 8. Yep.
Okay, so what is the dwelling units per acre max that staff is recommending? I know you don't have the total count.
Yeah, we
I
don't.
didn't see that as part of your recommendations here.
Yeah, we don't have a density threshold that we're shooting for. Historically, I will say some of the rezonings we've seen in the area have come in anywhere between 4 or 6, pushing upwards of 7. So it's not, I don't think it's out too far out of that. Is some of the mix of some of the duplex and triplex units in there, rather than just tris and quads. And then we wanted some of the notes to be, to read a little bit differently about the units along Mallard Creek Road, provide some visitor parking space. We had a building height limitation request, and that potential street connection to the north. So it's more about some of the form and design elements of the site rather than an actual unit count.
Yes, I know Mr. Fox talked about some of the outstanding issues, and you did speak about the height limitation. There was 40 feet height limitation. There were other items. If you could speak about mix of housing units that staff would like to see and other items that staff had requested and how that could be incorporated into the overall plan?
Well, the mix of housing units, especially as they front along Mallard Creek Road, presents a little bit of a problem. And the problem presents itself based upon other developments that have occurred in that vicinity in the past and the mix that they have displayed. And we're just asking and looking at those and trying to be treated consistent with some of those developments. And I provided to you a couple of the rezoning petitions to really look at.
Yes, I did write down a petition that you had referred 2021-146. That was one example.
Yes.
So are you saying that you're proposing similar to what was approved in terms of the mix of housing units?
Yeah, I'll let this is Mr. Chisholm, and he can address it.
Yeah, thank you, City Council, for giving me the opportunity. The big issue here is that when I studied the rezoning petitions, and as Councilman Johnson mentioned, I'm on the Neighborhood Coalition, which specifically looks at all the rezoning petitions in the area. There's 7 petitions that have 4 or more units, 5, 6 units per building. some along Mallard Creek, others along the corridor of Mallard Creek Church Road. So the request here, to me, is highly inconsistent and is an overreaction. I'm willing to accommodate. I don't feel like it's fair to accommodate based upon everything else. So that's the major issue. It's not the fact that we can't accommodate or the mix. It's the fact that city staff has a 2-year track record of inconsistency with the request. So that's the major issue. That's what I'm hoping we resolve.
Yeah, thank you. And I think we'll say we're consistent in our approach with the same petition that was just to the south of here. So that's mainly what we're basing a lot of that off of.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah, our request for that we had the same request on the petition just to the south here that was denied to try to get more in line with the Neighborhood 1 standards. And that was an outstanding item we carried through to the end. So we're looking at it really through the lens of similarities between those two petitions and how we've reviewed both of those because they are in almost the same location and a lot of the same context.
And I'll just add to that.
I think
Well, you have to respond to a
since
question
the
from the
public
dais.
hearing has ended, this is just, if I ask you a specific question, then you can address it. Otherwise, we had to be fair to others as well. I think I will work with Councilmember Johnson, the district rep, on some of this, and we will look at other petition that Mr. Patton had mentioned, which is in close vicinity. And I will also look at the petitions that you mentioned. I wrote down a couple of them, 146 being one of them. So I'll take a look at that. But in terms of the visitor parking, because of so much growth we have seen in that area, especially Mallard Creek Road, I don't think that's an unreasonable request to have visitor parking, because we often hear from neighborhoods that they don't want to see cars being parked and blocking their driveways. So I think visitor parking is a very reasonable request that I would like to see it being included in the proposal that comes forward for an approval. But on the other items, I'll work with Councilmember Johnson and we'll look at the others. But thank you so much.
Ms. Johnson?
Mr. Chisholm, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
The only two things is, first on visitor parking, we're fine with that, adding that, but half a mile within walking distance of this property is the issue, is that staff approved a rezoning in 2022 that had 3 buildings with 5 or 6 units, right? So it's a bigger precedent than just looking at what failed. And so that's the concern when we look at the consistency.
Sure, and I'll say to that also that was approved pre-UDO, old land use plan based off density, so we weren't looking at form, we were looking at unit count and DUA.
And let me add, you know that I've fought for responsible development. So I appreciate the staff honestly raising that bar. And just because we approved it before, I mean, I've shown the maps.
Yeah.
There's so much development in that area. So we do have to balance that. So I look forward to talking offline, but just because it was done that way before, there has since been a denial. So there's been some changes, like you said, the UDO. So there is a necessity to still balance that growth. But so we'll discuss that. Thank you. Move to close.
Second. No.
Ms. Molina?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem. So I was kind of coasting until you started arguing started kind of painting the precedent. And I want to speak to that, as far as going forward is concerned, right? Because I think one of the main things that we balance in this particular, position is the will of the people and what the rules say. Mm-hmm. And sometimes they're not adjacent, right? Sometimes they're not a clear parallel. So I would offer, because right now, and I got one specific question for you. There was a community meeting with 22 people. Did you get any feedback as a result of this particular position? Can you give me a little bit more information about what the actual people at that 22-member meeting said?
So I'll give you the history, because we've had 3 different meetings.
Okay.
So we had a first meeting with Pastor Boy, who leads the Lexington HOA unofficially, and Neelan Lewis, who's the HOA president. There was no opposition to our proposal there.
Okay.
We had the formal community meeting with 22 residents. There was no opposition in regards to our proposal there or the density. The bigger questions were in regards to the sewer system that was going to be used, the stormwater management system, direction of the houses, if they were going to be facing towards the backyard. Because the way it was laid out, they were concerned about, I guess, looking at dumpsters out of their backyard. That was one of the questions. But our houses are facing, they're looking at the front side of some of those houses, so there's not really an issue from that standpoint. And outside of those, there were general concerns. I mean, yeah, concern about the builder and what the houses would look like. And once we satisfied those concerns, there were no issues that remained. We had a third community meeting for the Lexington residents who couldn't attend at the Lexington Clubhouse in October. And most of those questions were very similar in nature, and we addressed all those concerns and provided even greater detail. So the feedback from the residents have been pretty strong. Their official stance, because they can't offer a formal statement of support, is no opposition. And to give you context, the other rezoning petition, they had 133 people. We've only had 22 at each of these. So it's a very different lay of land. Their stance is they like it, they support it. We have residents come up to us personally saying they're happy that David Weekley's building this neighborhood, but there's no concerns about density or anything else.
Okay. Mr. Fox, can I ask you a question, please? I know you are a veteran in this work, so when it comes to making sure that we understand kind of how this landscape is panning out. When he's, and I'm trying to understand because I don't have the access that Councilmember Johnson has, but of course, we're all gonna now circle back to her to make sure that we understand, the precedent that's being argued based on this particular position. What is the apples kind of analogous petition that he's talking about? Is it immediately adjacent? Like, is there another townhome community that's connecting to this? Is that the
They're in close
premise for-
proximity, but to Dave's point, that was prior to the new UDO, but the place types are compatible, and the request is similar to what's being requested here.
Okay. All right, I'm done. I'll ask, the member to see if I can get some more context around it, but I'm good.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
A motion been made and properly seconded. Any discussion? Hear none? All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That's unanimous to close the public hearing. Move on to item number 29, rezoning petition 2023-064 by South End Walk LLC, located on approximately 9 acres on the west side of South Tryon Street and south side of Orchard Circle, east of Interstate 77 in Council District 3, Ms. Watlington's district. The current zoning is N1D, Neighborhood 1D, CG, General Commercial, and I1CD, Light Industrial Conditional, and the proposed zoning is TODNC, Transit Oriented Development Neighborhood Center. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There are no speakers against, so you will have petition will have 3 minutes after staff's presentation.
Thank you. This petition 2023-064 is just over 9 acres located west of South Tryon Street, south of Orchard Circle, and east of I-77. The current zoning is a mix of N1D, CG, and I1CD, and proposed zoning is Todd NC. 2040 policy map, a lot of different colors under one petition. It's a mix of neighborhood 1, commercial, innovation, mixed use, and manufacturing and logistics place types. Petition is inconsistent with those different recommendations. However, the site is within 1 mile of Scaly Bark Station. Also, there have been several petitions in the vicinity that council has approved rezonings to Todd NC. Staff does recommend approval, and I'd be happy to take any questions after the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you very much. Colin Brown and Gary Wolf, you have 3 minutes.
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem, Colin Brown on behalf of the petitioner. I've not coordinated time with the other speaker, but it's my understanding you said there were none in opposition?
I have nobody in opposition,
okay.
no. So you have 3 minutes combined then.
Okay. I think great presentation by Joe. A couple things I wanted to point out to the zoning committee too. I'm glad you're looking at it. I'm here on behalf of Chris Deese, who is here as well. This is really an assemblage of a number of properties, kind of interesting things that have developed over time. So we've got a lot of single-family property owners along Orchard Circle that have come together to work together on a development. And what's interesting, as you can see here from the aerial, as you know, right across the street, you can see the cranes. This is becoming a pretty dense area. The challenge we keep having, and every month I'm in front of you to talk about the inconsistencies with the land use plan, it's a challenge, right? And so I would like for you to look at this, and Joe mentioned it. Here are the properties that we're talking about. And the land use plan recommends low-density residential on some, retail on some, innovative mixed use on some, and industrial on the other. It would literally be impossible to bring you a rezoning petition that was consistent with all of those. So we're going to have, anything we do is going to be inconsistent. We think this is the right direction. As you can see, everything across the street recommended to go to TOD has that zoning already in this area. To the north, and this is zonings we worked on with Tri-Point, has brought in urban residential for more kind of townhome development. And we think this is kind of cleaning this area up. So we're going to take the industrial, we're going to take that low density and take the retail and bring that into the TOD district. This is a conventional zoning, so we don't have a site plan to put in front of you, but we think it is consistent. Again, you've got TOD NC here and urban residential to the north. We have had some conversations with some adjacent owners. There's a little bit of rub here. There's a private street that leads to the site, and so we have had conversations with the existing business here about concerns about traffic. We continue to have those conversations, but obviously wanted to bring this to you tonight, show you where we are. That's the only real feedback we've gotten is about that issue.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, you have about 45 seconds. If we can stop the time so he gets to the lectern.
Members of council, my name's Gary Wolf. I'm an attorney in Greensboro. I represent Cookout Restaurants, which is based in Thomasville. Cookout has approximately 12, 13 restaurants in Mecklenburg County. And this restaurant, which is on the right front as you come in Jeremiah, is one of our most recent restaurants built in Charlotte, Mecklenburg. We only want to put before you, we're not in opposition to this density because we think the density in this area will only serve Cookout. But we want to express our concerns about Jeremiah Avenue, which is a private road, and it only serves the L1.
Hey, sorry, that was 3 minutes combined. So you can respond if somebody directs a question to you. Are there any questions from the council? Ms. Watlington.
Sir, what was the rest of what you was going to say?
You have to have
specificity.
What is the position of the body that you're representing?
Cookout is concerned about any uses on the other properties. The private road agreement limits the use of Jeremiah to the I-1 property only, the 3 lots that are there. There's a building on the left, which is Leneve Woodworking Machinery and Supply, and then you got Ensco Capital Electric Supply in the back. Those are the 3 lots that can use that road, and we don't want any of the other property using it. And then when I looked at your transportation summary, they talked about the existing use having 70 trips per day based on Ensco's supplies, 19,396 square feet, and an entitlement of 125 trips per day based on total warehousing of 54,000. My final comment is keep in mind that the restaurant on the right front corner has over 1,000 trips a day, and that did not make it into the transportation summary.
Thank you.
So we just want you to keep that in mind when you're working through this with the zoning committee.
Thank you. No other questions?
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Mr. Wolf, I was just going to ask if I could get your card before you leave, because there's an old Jack in the Box in District 4 that's owned by Cookout, and we're having some, and I'd like to talk to somebody about it. Okay? All right. Thank you.
Question. If we could keep these conversations from the dais about land use, about the petition, that would be great. I do have a question. I heard that Jeremiah is a public road. I've heard Jeremiah is a private road. What is it, staff?
It appears to be a private road.
Oh, it's a private road?
It is a private road.
That's correct.
Okay. And it would remain a private road in this rezoning?
The rezoning would not make it public. We will have some ongoing conversations with Cookout. I mean, our team would be happy to dedicate it publicly. I think they may have some hesitations about increased use of it, so that'll be a conversation we'll have. With the conventional zoning, it is what it is, though, right?
Yeah.
It is just. So, and I think, obviously, Cookout has attorneys, the developer has attorneys that will probably be hashed out over this agreement that Mr. Wolf is referring to.
But of course, the site does also have access to Orchard Circle.
And Tryon.
To the north and directly to South Tryon Street.
Thank you very much. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
I have a hamburger-related comment. Should I not say it?
No. You have a motion that's been made and properly second to close the public hearing. Any discussion of that public hearing, of that motion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. It's unanimous to close the public hearing. We'll move on to item number 30, rezoning petition 2023-077 by BPR Properties LLC, located on approximately 2.782 acres along the east side of Sanctuary Place and the north side of Twitter Lane, and the south side of University City Boulevard. In Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is TOD-TR, Transit-Oriented Development Transition, and the proposed zoning is Community Activity Center 1. Staff recommends approval of this petition. We have no speakers in opposition, so after staff's presentation, the petition will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you. 2023-077, it's about 2.8 acres on University City Boulevard and the outdated name of Twitter Lane. We can work on that. But yeah, so that's where we are located, University City Boulevard, Sanctuary Place, Twitter Lane. The current zoning is TOD-TR, and the proposed zoning is to go conventional to Community Activity Center 1. You can see the adopted place type for that frontage there along University City Boulevard is Community Activity Center. Just a little brief history on how we ended up with TOD-TR in this location. We took this petition through with the B2 conditional and the TOD that's just next door. Originally, the property owner previous wanted to maintain some options to potentially do climate-controlled self-storage, given all the apartment development in the area. So that's where the TOD-TR was part of that initial rezoning. Some uses that are being looked at for the property aren't permitted uses in that TOD-TR district, so that's why we see the rezoning this evening for Community Activity Center 1, which again is consistent. Staff doesn't have any concerns with that petition. It's recommended for approval by the staff, and again, it is consistent with that Community Activity Center place type. And we will take any questions you may have for us following Mr. Carmichael's presentation. Thank you.
Very much, John Carmichael and Bijou Patel. You have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem, members of the council and zoning committee. I'm John Carmichael. Mr. Patel's with me here tonight. As Mr. Patton stated, the site contains about 2.8 acres located on the southeast corner of the intersection of Sanctuary Place and University City Boulevard. It's just to the east of the intersection of University City Boulevard and North Tryon Street. The site is currently zoned TOD-TR, as Dave indicated. The request is to rezone the site to the Community Activity Center 1 zoning district to allow uses permitted in the CAC 1 zoning district on the site. It's consistent with the 2040 policy map recommendation. The policy map places this site in the Community Activity Center place type, and of course, that's the district that's being requested tonight. We're happy to answer any questions that you may have, and we appreciate your consideration.
Move to close.
Second.
It's been a motion made and probably second to close the public hearing. Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. And again, just for those sitting in the audience and those watching at home, even though there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of us at the dais, once quorum is hit, quorum sticks, so everybody who's not here is actually counted as a yes vote. We'll move on to item number 31, rezoning petition 2023-078 -078 by City Sculpt LLC, located on approximately 1.26 acres along the southeast side of Kenilworth Avenue, the southwest side of Greenwood Cliff, and the northeast side of Harding Place in Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. The current zoning is NC Neighborhood Center, and the proposed zoning is Community Activity Center 2. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There are no speakers in opposition, so the petitioner will have 3 minutes after staff's presentation.
Thank you. This site is just under 1.3 acres along Kenilworth Avenue, Harding Place, and Greenwood Cliff. It's in the Midtown area. It has close proximity to Uptown, as well as the lower density residential areas and mixed-use development that we see in Cherry, as well as the Dilworth neighborhood. A lot of this area is zoned to NC due to the Midtown Moorhead Cherry pedestrian overlay that automatically translated a handful of the legacy districts to neighborhood center. And the proposal is for Community Activity Center 2, and that's consistent with the policy map's recommendation for Community Activity Center at this site. This is a conventional petition, so we don't have an associated site plan. Staff recommends approval of this petition given the consistency with the policy map and the alignment with the planned development in the area, which will densify the Kenilworth corridor and focus redevelopment and intensification in this non-residential area. And I'll take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
Mrs. McVeigh, Charles Lindsay McAlpine, and Shane Siegel, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. Keith McVeigh with Moore Van Allen, assisting City Sculpt. As Holly mentioned, I think she did a great job covering it. Site located in the Midtown area of Charlotte, near the Pearl Innovation District, as well as Metropolitan and the Sugar Creek Greenway. Request for CAC2, which is consistent with the policy map recommendation for this area. We're happy to answer questions.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. So Keith, I see this particular site is sort of sandwiched in between Dilworth and the Cherry neighborhood. Have you received any feedback from either one of those neighborhood associations?
The Dilworth representatives were at our community meeting, and they were comfortable with the rezoning request. We have not spoken directly to the Cherry representative, but we're happy to reach out to them.
Okay, I'd like it if you reach out to the Cherry Neighborhood Association. And then will there be a traffic study done with this particular zoning?
There will be a comprehensive transportation review once the specific development proposal is submitted to the city.
Excellent. Thank you. Motion to close.
Second. So the motion been made and properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. In favor of closing the public hearing, we'll move on to item number 32, rezoning petition 2023-081 by M Industrial Property Charlotte II LLC, located on approximately 8.869 acres along the east side of Yorkmount Road, south of Byram Drive, and north of Oak Lake Boulevard in Council District 3, Ms. Watlington's district. The current zoning is ML1, Manufacturing and Logistics 1 with an airport noise overlay, and the proposed zoning is ML2, Manufacturing and Logistics 2 with an airport noise overlay. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There are no speakers against this, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Petition 2023-081, approximately 8.87 acres located on the east side of Yorkmont Road, south of Byram Drive, and north of Oak Lake Boulevard, less than a mile south of Charlotte Douglas Airport. Current zoning is ML1. It is within the airport noise disclosure overlay. The proposed zoning is ML2, that airport overlay would carry forward. The 2040 policy map recommends manufacturing and logistics for both this site as well as all adjacent properties. It is consistent with that recommendation, and staff recommends approval. Be happy to take any questions after the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you. John Carmichael and Mike Malta, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor Pro Tem and members of the council and zoning committee. I'm John Carmichael, Mike Malta, the petitioners with me. Mr. Mangum did a good job going over the request. It's a conventional request to go from ML1 to ML2 with the overlay district. It's consistent with the 2040 policy map. It recommends that puts this site in the manufacturing logistics place type, and we're happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Ms. Watlington.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. My question is for staff. What is the, briefly, difference between ML1 and ML2?
ML2 is generally going to be more intense, allows for outdoor storage. That's a key distinction that you'll probably see more petitions that need ML2 versus ML1. I can't speak specifically to what the petitioner has planned for the site, but
Right.
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Second.
Motion made and probably second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, that's unanimous to close public hearing. We'll move on to agenda item number 33, rezoning petition 2023-082 by Metrolina Storage LLC, located on approximately 8.6 acres along the east side of Statesville Road, northwest of Old Statesville Road in Council District 2, Mr. Graham's district. The current zoning is I2CD General Industrial Conditional, and the proposed zoning is ML1 Manufacturing and Logistics 1. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There are no speakers in opposition, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Petition 2023-082 is located along the east side of Statesville Road, northwest of Old Statesville Road. The site is approximately 8.6 acres and is currently developed with a self-storage facility. The site is currently zoned I2CD light industrial or general industrial conditional. The proposed zoning is ML1, Manufacturing and Logistics, which is a conventional district. The 2040 policy map recommends that manufacturing and logistics place type. ML1 district is consistent with the M&L place type. This is a conventional rezoning petition. There is not an associated site plan and would permit any use allowed in the ML1 district. Staff recommends approval of this petition. Happy to take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you very much. Nolan Grachi, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of City Council and the Zoning Committee. Nolan Gross with Urban Design Partners. It's okay. Representing Metrolina Storage LLC on rezoning petition 2023-082. The site is located at 7,000 Statesville Road to the east of I-77 and northwest of Old Statesville Road. It's an existing storage facility, mini storage. This is a conventional rezoning request from I2CD to ML1. As staff mentioned, the 2040 policy map identifies this parcel as manufacturing and logistics, making it consistent. Being a conventional petition, I do not have a site-specific plan or conditions, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Very much. Motion to close public hearing.
Second.
There's been a motion made and properly second. Any discussion of it? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous in favor of closing public hearing. Move on to item number 34, petition number 2023-085 by Rhino Partners Coffee LLC, located on approximately 0.241 acres along the west side of the plaza, north of Commonwealth Avenue and south of Central Avenue in Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. Current zoning is B2CD, PED O, a general business conditional with pedestrian overlay, and the proposed zoning is NC Neighborhood Center. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and there are no speakers in opposition. So after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. This site is just under a quarter acre along the plaza. It currently houses Giddy Goat Cafe. This is in Plaza Midwood neighborhood, just south of the core development along Central Avenue. This parcel is currently zoned B1 PED optional, and that's as a result of the approved rezoning 2019-183. And the proposal is to go to Neighborhood Center conventional. That proposal is consistent with the policy map's recommendation for community activity center in the area. This is a conventional petition, so there's no associated site plan. The original 2019 petition provided relief from the old ordinance's parking standards, but the site no longer needs those optional provisions and seeks to operate under the NC zoning district, which is the predominant zoning district in the immediate area. So this rezoning would bring the parcel in alignment with those other parcels, all zoned NC surrounding the site, and it would allow development in a district that encourages robust pedestrian infrastructure and a mix of uses that service the area's residents. And I'll be happy to take any questions following the petitioner's PowerPoint.
Mr. McVeigh, Carson Clough, and Ryan Davis, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Keith McVeigh with Moore Van Allen. Mayor Pro Tem, members of council, members of the zoning committee. With me tonight representing the petitioner is Mr. Davis, Ryan Davis. As Holly mentioned, the rezoning that was previously done was really to modify the parking standards. This site, when it was originally developed as a sushi restaurant, had car lifts on the site. Those were not well adopted by customers, and so when Giddy Goat, the coffee shop that currently exists on the site, purchased the property, they wanted to eliminate those car lifts and just rely on surface parking. As Holly mentioned, with the onset of the UDO and the new parking standards of the NC zoning district, the current parking on the site meets the requirements of the NC district, which is consistent with all the other zoning for the parcels around it. So the petitioner requesting to go to that zoning district, the NC zoning district, and eliminate the old conditional plan that was previously put on the property. We had a community meeting. We had representatives of the Plaza Midwood Merchants Association, as well as the Commonwealth Morningside Neighborhood Association, attend the meeting, and they didn't express any concerns about the rezoning request to change the zoning on the property to be consistent with everything else around it. Happy to answer questions.
Motion to close.
Second. Motion is made and properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion of the motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous to close the public hearing. We will move on to item number 35, rezoning petition 2023-090 by West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition, located on approximately 3.544 acres along the south side of West Boulevard, the west side of Clanton Road, and the east side of Romare Bearden Drive in Council District 3, Ms. Watlington's district. The current zoning is O2CD office conditional, and the proposed zoning is NC Neighborhood Center, and staff recommends approval of this petition. We have no speakers in opposition, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
All right, petition 2023-090 is located along the south side of West Boulevard, west of Clanton Road, and east of Romare Bearden Drive. The site is approximately 3.54 acres and is currently developed with a community garden. The site is currently zoned O2CD, office conditional. The previous rezoning petition called for the development of an office building on the site and a child care facility to the parcel to the south. The child care facility was built, but the office portion was never built. The proposed zoning is NC Neighborhood Center, a conventional district. 2040 policy map recommends the neighborhood center place type. The NC district is consistent with this place type. The conventional rezoning petition, there's not an associated site plan and would permit any uses allowed in the NC district. Staff recommends approval of this petition. I'm happy to take any questions after the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you very much. Deja Feaster, you have 3 minutes.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Deasia Feaster, and I serve as a community coordinator for the West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition, and I am a Clanton Park resident. I represent the collective vision of 19 diverse neighborhoods along the West Boulevard corridor. Our primary objective is clear: to drive community-led strategies that foster economic growth and enhance the quality of life for our residents and businesses. The site at 2901 Romare Bearden Drive holds immense significance for us. Not only is it the current home of our Urban Farm and Seeds for Change youth urban farming program, but also with your support and rezoning, it will mark the establishment of the first walkable grocery store in the area in over 3 decades. It will also be the first and only community-owned cooperative grocery store in the city of Charlotte. This initiative goes beyond convenience. It signifies our commitment to empowering community members, elevating economic opportunities, improving health outcomes, creating jobs, and bolstering safety within our community. Access to quality fresh food is fundamental. It's not just about sustenance. It directly impacts our health, education, and economic stability. Presently, many residents, myself included, face challenges accessing nutritious food, impacting our health and future prospects. Additionally, we have heard directly from our youth in the community the safety challenges associated with having to walk over a mile and across the train tracks to access fresh produce and even cases of water. The cooperative market will solve for several health equity, safety, and economic mobility challenges experienced by residents of the West Boulevard corridor by providing jobs to the community, ease of access to fresh produce, and of course, healthier food options in our area with the abundance of fast food, vape shops, and convenience stores that we currently have. Transforming this location into a cooperative grocery store owned by residents will significantly reduce those barriers. It's not just about groceries. It's about empowering our community with ownership, access to healthier choices, and creating a stronger, more resilient neighborhood.
This rezoning isn't merely a procedural matter, it's a statement. It reaffirms our commitment to enhancing the lives of everyone along the West Boulevard corridor by ensuring equitable access to essential resources, fostering economic growth, and building a more vibrant community. Thank you for considering the profound impact this rezoning will have on our community's future. Thank you.
Ms. Watlington.
You were looking over here. You already knew. I'm so happy. I'm not even gonna lie. I just, real quickly, for the residents of West Boulevard, folks, Three Sisters Market and West Boulevard Neighborhood Coalition, will you just quickly stand and be recognized? I really appreciate your work. As was mentioned, it's been a very long time coming, and this is huge. So I look forward to supporting this more than just the rezoning, but for all of the reasons that you just mentioned. Proud West Side resident over here. That's all. Thank you so much.
Ms. Johnson.
Thank you. Is this currently in the location where the farm, the community garden is? Or the,
Yes.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
I don't know if I met you when I did the bus tour.
Yes, ma'am.
Toured the community garden. It's a great area, and this is great work. It solves so many problems in food desert and just socioeconomic, so I look forward to supporting as well.
Thank you.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to echo the sentiments of my colleagues. I actually serve on the board of Renaissance West Community Initiative. Three Sisters does great work with that community. You have been doing so for years. And I know the residents of RWCI are going to look forward to be able to shop in this market once it's open. So congratulations and keep up the great work. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you.
Before I make a motion to close, I'll join in. I was able to visit Seeds to Change before I even decided I was running for office back in 2017. And I know this is a long haul, and you guys are persistent, and you're going to keep going. This is a good waypoint to point to. Just keep pushing, all right? Just keep pushing. Motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Motion has been made and properly seconded. Any discussion of the motion? Here or none? All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous in favor of closing the public hearing. We'll move on to item number 36, rezoning petition 2023-091 by Mecklenburg County, located on approximately 3.2 acres along the northwest side of North College Street in both the east and west side of East 7th Street in Council District 1, Ms. Anderson's district. The current zoning is UMUD-O, Uptown Mixed Use Development Optional, and the proposed zoning was UMUD-O SBA, Uptown Mixed Use Development Optional with the site plan amendment. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and requested technical revisions. There are no speakers against this, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
Thank you. This petition is 3.23 acres along North College Street as well as both sides of East 7th Street. It's located in the core of Uptown across an assemblage of parcels owned by the county. And the site was most recently rezoned as petition 2021-163 to UMUD optional, and this proposal is for a site plan amendment to that UMUD conditional plan. The policy map calls for a regional activity center for this area, which UMUD is consistent with. The plan itself and the site plan amendment is to provide an additional full movement access point to building envelope B as labeled on the site plan there with a red arrow. It would also commit to additional pedestrian connectivity by dividing what was previously building envelope A into building envelopes A and A1 with pedestrian connectivity path between those building envelopes that runs from North Tryon Street to North College Street while maintaining the other pedestrian connectivity to the East 6th Street. It also maintains the previously approved uses, which is just all uses permitted by right and under prescribed conditions in the UMUD district, and it maintains all the optional provisions as listed there, with the only change being that they added a commitment to an 8-foot minimum pedestrian clear zone. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon the resolution of a couple of those minor outstanding issues with CDOT and just one small technical revision. We believe that the modifications presented in this petition to the previously approved conditional plan are minor and would not significantly change the nature of development that was originally approved in petition 2021-163. And I'll take any questions following the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you very much. Sean Hicks, you have 3 minutes.
Great, thank you. Good evening, everyone. Sean Hicks with Land Design. I think Holly did a great job kind of outlining the kind of minor changes to the plan. Happy to answer any questions.
Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a quick question for you. I see that there wasn't really any participation from the neighborhood, and there's a lot of activity going on in that particular area. What is the outreach plan to get feedback from constituents in that area?
We can certainly reach, we held the community meeting, reached out. Nobody signed up. Like Holly said, there's minor, the plan is still maintaining the same original intent, so we can reach out further if that's desired. And just, I guess, to hopefully I can speak on this, the reason for this is we just need the driveway access for that parcel. We currently have no access to that right side, and that's merely the main change for this whole petition, SPA.
Yep. Thank you. I understand the ask. I'm just a bit surprised, given all the activity in the neighborhood, that the constituents didn't engage to understand the simplicity of the ask. That I was a little bit taken aback by that.
There might have been, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought there was one conversation with the owners of Duckworth.
That's true. Yeah, I did speak with Rob Duckworth. He did reach out, and he could not make the meeting, so I reached out to him. We had a phone call, talked him through the minor changes, and he was no opposition to the change.
I will say that this parcel now was a conglomerate of many different parcels, was highly talked over. This was the 7th and North Tryon parcel that, which currently the deal doesn't work right now, so the county is trying to go a different way. So this was highly community engaged at one point in time. So.
Thank you. Motion to close?
Second. There's been a motion that's been made and properly second. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous to close the public hearing. We'll move on to agenda item number 37, rezoning petition 2023-094 by Josh Jolly, Rosegate Holdings LLC, located on approximately 3.52 acres along the north side of Johnson Euler Road and south of Barrow Road in Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. The current zoning is N1A, Neighborhood 1A, and the proposed zoning is N2A, CD, Neighborhood 2A, conditional. Staff recommends approval of this petition upon resolution of outstanding issues related to transportation and environment. There are no speakers in opposition, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2023-094, it's 3.5 acres on Johnson Naylor Road. It is just south of Barrow Road. You can see there's lots of multifamily development going on just to the north. We've had some recent rezoning petitions also to the west that were approved in this area, and one just adjacent to this when we get to the zoning map. You can see this is currently zoned N1A. We do have R8 MF conditional right next door, UR3, UR2 all around there. This is a rezoning from N1A, and the request is to go to neighborhood 2A conditional. Policy map does call for neighborhood 1. You can see we do have neighborhood 2 just to the north. And really, if we look a little bit, like I said, to the east on Johnston Naylor, where we had that R8 petition, a lot of that area just next door here should also be, or would be considered neighborhood 2 at this point. So we just somewhat continue that pattern of development. The proposal is for up to 45 multifamily attached dwelling units or townhomes. Does provide an 8-foot planting strip, an 8-foot wide 8-foot wide sidewalk along the site's frontage on Johnston Naylor. 35 feet of right-of-way would be dedicated from the center line of that road as well. Building height would be capped at 48 feet. We do have a future street connection that would run to the east here, where that project for the R8 MFCD was just approved not too long ago, I think a couple years ago. So there would be interconnectivity between those two projects. And then also architectural details and building materials have been incorporated into the development conditions. Staff does recommend approval. We do have some outstanding issues related to transportation and environment to work for. As mentioned, it is inconsistent with the policy map recommendation. However, we do have a good bit of neighborhood neighborhood 2 in the area, including just adjacent to this. We're also not very far from an activity center, which is seeing some ongoing development both to the west and to the southwest of this site. So we do feel it's an appropriate location for a little bit of an increase over that neighborhood 1 policy or place type. So with that, we'll turn it over to the petitioner, and we'll take any questions you may have following their presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nolan Gross, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of the City Council and the Zoning Committee. Nolan Gross with Urban Design Partners, representing Rosegate Holdings LLC on rezoning petition 2023-094. The site is located north of Johnson Naylor Road across from Mallard Creek High School to the east of Rumble Street and south of I-485. Existing today, this is 2 parcels making up 3.52 total acres with a single-family detached home on each individual parcel. As staff mentioned, we are requesting to rezone from Neighborhood 1A to Neighborhood 2A Conditional District. The 2040 policy map does identify the site as Neighborhood 1. However, based on existing trends in the area, we believe that we are maintaining consistency with development patterns. So the site plan you see on your screen does look a little bit different than what was in staff's presentation. We have been addressing the outstanding issues related to transportation. There was a driveway request that we align it with the southern side of the road. Our original thought was with the full drive to Mallard Creek. That was actually the residential drive at the western edge of the site. So we have revised the site plan and look forward to continue addressing outstanding issues with staff. The site does propose up to 45 multifamily attached townhome units with tree save along the northern property boundary abutting the multifamily site. We've located the homes to the western portion of the site to respect the existing single-family home to the eastern property. We are exceeding the minimum parking requirements as shown and providing 6 additional off-street spaces for visitors. We're also providing 38,000 square feet of open space where the minimum requirement is only 11,000 square feet at 250 square feet per unit. You can also see the units along the frontage step back. So there's an existing utility easement. There's an AT&T easement along the frontage of the property. So we did have to locate those back and could not provide a 20-foot driveway for those units. So they're proposed to have a 5 to 7 foot parking pad instead. Here's just a sample elevation. We're still looking at different building elevations for the site. As Dave mentioned, we do have conditions in the rezoning petition regulating architectural features, but I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Very much. Ms. Johnson.
Thank you for the presentation. Was there any opposition during the community meeting?
Thank you for the question. So we had 6 attendees for our community meeting. There was no opposition. There were a few general questions, but really not a whole lot of conversation. And we have not received any additional feedback since that community meeting.
Okay. And I'm thinking of the area. Are there single-family homes across the street? Is that where the nearest?
So there is one directly across the street, but predominantly Mallard Creek High School is across the street from the site as well.
Okay, and then the neighborhood. Okay. Well, we can talk offline. Thank
Happy
you.
to. Yes, ma'am.
Motion to close.
Second. It's been a motion that's made and properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion of that motion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. Close the public hearing. We move on to item number 38. Rezoning petition 2023-096 by Conformity Corp. located on approximately 1 acre in the northeastern corner of the intersection of Ashley Road and Greenland Avenue in Council District 3, Ms. Watlington's district. The current zoning is OFC Office Flex Campus in N1B Neighborhood 1B, and the proposed zoning is N2B Neighborhood 2B. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and there are no.
This petition is right at 1 acre located northeastern corner of the intersection of Ashley Road and Greenland Avenue. Site is mostly zoned OFC. There is a small portion zoned N1B in the northern corner. Proposed zoning is N2B. The policy map recommends neighborhood 2, which is consistent. Staff recommends approval, and I'll answer any questions after the petitioner's presentation.
Thank you. Monty Richard, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, and good evening, members of City Council. Thank you, zoning committee members. I don't have a lot to add to staff's presentation. Our petition is consistent with the UDO, which seeks N2 in this area. We have adjacent to us a daycare just northwest. You can see that there's a car repair lot in this slide to the plan south of our site and to the plan east of our site here, and also happens to be east. In addition to plan east is the multifamily you see there, which is owned by Ginkgo Residential. This is across from the Walmart Supercenter development that local government has already heavily invested in. That was done over a decade ago. Interestingly, I looked the other day that Walmart enjoyed 1.36 million trips last year as one of the few grocery offerings in that area. We plan for multifamily in this area with a transit stop approved on the Silver Line less than a quarter mile away. We think that you can see why multifamily in this area might resonate and why the plan calls for the UDO calls for the types of uses that we have in mind. So I'll take any questions that you might have. Thank you.
Ms. Watlington?
Yeah, I just got a quick question, and forgive me because it's rudimentary, but my question's for staff. I see existing zoning, that's this office, and then I see the policy map that calls for neighborhood 2. If the policy map calls for neighborhood 2, why is there a need to rezone for N2?
Because the current zoning would only allow for office use. That district allows very few uses, and the petitioner is requesting neighborhood 2.
Right. What I'm asking is, why does the zoning, or at what point does the zoning reflect what's in the policy map? I'm trying to understand why there is a existing use that hasn't been translated in a meaningful way.
We haven't done the realignment zoning yet.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I was
going to. Over here.
Yeah, thank you.
That's what you're doing next year.
And this is your last meeting, right?
Yeah.
But it's correct. So we haven't had a chance to go through, and that's the exercise we're going to get into much more in full swing next year, is the alignment rezoning, where we're looking at just that. So current zoning is office, policy map is neighborhood 2. Taking that through, similar to what we did with TOD along the blue line, to say, okay, let's make sure that we do align it with the policy map recommendation so we get the outcome that we're looking for long term. This is just we see a lot of these private rezonings that we talked a little bit about earlier, where this isn't necessarily an issue of the use getting caught up, it's just the zoning translated to what it is, but long term we envision this as residential. So that's where, if the petitioner didn't get to it this time around at this juncture, the city would probably get to it when we start that process next year.
Yeah, okay. So I'll just say this, and I know I said it earlier already, but I feel like they're doing us a favor. So if there's got to be a way we can help folks do this. They're essentially accelerating the alignment.
That's what I've been saying.
Yeah.
Moving down the process.
You sure you want to leave, buddy?
What's going on here?
That's it for me.
Thank you.
All right, motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Yeah.
Motion made and properly second to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hearing none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, we'll move on to item number 39, rezoning petition 2023-097 by Drakeford Communities, located on approximately 0.64 acres along the east side of Ashley Road, south of Allegheny Street in Council District 2, Mr. Graham's district. The current zoning is R22 MFCD, multifamily conditional, and the proposed zoning is N2B neighborhood 2. Staff recommends approval of this petition. There is a speaker against this, so after staff's presentation, the petitioner will have 10 minutes.
Petition 2023-097 is located on the east side of Ashley Road, south of Allegheny Street. The site is approximately 0.64 acres and is currently undeveloped. The site is zoned R22 MFCD, multifamily conditional. The site was included as part of petition 2022-055, but was not shown as part of the proposed multifamily development. This R22 portion over here was that petition for 2022. The proposed zoning is N2B Neighborhood 2, a conventional district. 2040 policy map recommends that a Neighborhood 2 place type. N2B district is consistent with this place type. This is a conventional rezoning petition. There's not an associated site plan and would permit any uses allowed in the N2B district. Staff recommends approval of this petition. I'm happy to take any questions after Mr. Brown's presentation.
Thank you very much. Colin Brown and Bobby Drake, would you have 10 minutes?
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Colin Brown on behalf of the petitioner, Draper Companies. I am flying solo tonight. My law partner, Brittany Lenz, gave birth to a beautiful baby girl last night. So, I'm like a proud dad. Mom and baby are doing well, so thank you for thinking of her. On behalf of Draper tonight, great overview by Max. This is a conventional rezoning, so there's not a site plan. This is in the Ashley Allegheny area, which, as you know, those out there know there's a lot of new development going on. The reason this is a little bit of a remainder of a rezoning that we handled earlier this year, working with another development team. So this is kind of a leftover parcel. It has R22 MF conditional on it now, and that was it on the site plan, kind of a placeholder for not knowing what would come. This is, as you guys were kind of talking about, this is one of those scenarios where we are, in this case, actually, I'm so happy to be consistent with the plan. This is an area that calls for N2, and it's pretty consistent with the existing zoning out there. So as you can see, there's N2B already to the south, and it really brings this piece kind of in conformity with the block so that can be developed together under a unified zoning district. We did have an attendee at the community meeting who expressed support. I understand there's someone here tonight who has signed up in opposition. I was not aware of that ahead of time. Mr. Drake and I did have a conversation with her outside. I think she maybe has some concerns with other things going on in the area. So I'll just say, since it's conventional, I'll stick with what I've showed you, and I'll be happy to answer any questions following any other comments we may hear.
Thank you. Sheltonia Everett, you have 10 minutes. Huh? Hey, take your time. It'll start once you get here.
Oh.
Yeah, take your time.
Be careful coming down the steps.
Assuming she's the neighbor.
Hey, panel, I don't know what to say, but how y'all doing this evening? Praise God. I was under the impression that this was happening behind my house. And I was told tonight that it.
I was going to point for you.
Oh, thank you. Where's my house?
Your house.
Huh?
I was just gonna, this is your house if you want me to point to it.
Okay,
This is what's happening behind.
okay.
Go ahead.
But where y'all working at on the yellow right there? I'm sorry, y'all.
You're okay.
I was under the impression that this was going on behind my house because I was still under the impression that there was going to be 300 feet from my house, and this is across the street, which I really don't have a problem with. Them doing anything across the street from my house, I really don't have a problem with that. That's why I'm here, because I was speaking for the house God blessed me with. So since that's across the street, then I have no problems with that at all. None. I'll approve.
On her backyard.
Thank you very much for paying attention to the signage that's going up around your neighborhood. I know it could be pretty confusing, but we're glad somebody's paying attention to that.
It really is.
Mr. Brown, you still have 2 minutes for a rebuttal if you
I was
so.
just going to say, there is some development going on behind her house, and we're happy
Microphone,
to be
please.
having conversations on that. I have nothing further.
Mr. Mayor Pro Tem,
Alina?
Colin, you said there's something going on behind her house?
There is, in fact, development going on behind the house, which Mr. Drakeford happens to be involved in, and we're happy to kind of follow up and have conversations about that directly.
Okay, yeah, because first of all, thank you for waiting so long. I see your baby done went to sleep and just really tired, and, I appreciate you waiting to the very end. So, staff, can we get her some more information on what's going on behind her house?
Yes.
To make sure that she knows.
Yes.
and has the information that she needs.
Happy to provide any information on that petition buying the house and whatever development is coming with that petition.
I would really, really appreciate that a whole lot.
Thank you so much. God bless you guys. Thank you.
Motion to close the public hearing.
Second. No, you good.
No, you're good, you're good.
Motion made and properly seconded to close the public hearing. Any discussion? Hear none. All in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed, please raise your hand. Seeing none, it's unanimous. We move on to the final rezoning petition of the evening. Agenda item number 40, rezoning petition 2023-123 by Charlotte 212 LLC, located on approximately 4.26 acres along the east side of West Sugar Creek Road, south of the Roman Road, and north of Equipment Drive in City Council District 4, Ms. Johnson's district. Current zoning is CG General Commercial, and the proposed zoning is N2C Neighborhood 2C. Staff recommends approval of this petition, and there are no speakers in opposition. After staff's presentation, petitioner will have 3 minutes.
All right, thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. 2023-123. It's 4.25 acres on West Sugar Creek Road, just north of Equipment Drive and I-85. It is currently zoned CG, and the proposed zoning is for Neighborhood 2C, and that'd be conventional. The policy map does recommend commercial for this particular property. You can see we do have quite a mix there. We've got some Neighborhood 2 on the map, Neighborhood 1, campus, and some manufacturing logistics a little bit further to what essentially would be the north. The petition, again, is for conventional N2C to do some redevelopment of the site to allow residential uses. The CG district would not allow residential uses in the existing buildings. I know we did pass that text amendment not too long ago that did talk about residential uses in CG, but that only applies if they're in a neighborhood or a community activity center. This is just a straight commercial recommendation, so that provision wouldn't provide any assistance or relief on this. So that's why the petitioner is here to help facilitate some transition of that hotel space to residential space. Neighborhood 2C also does allow some non-residential uses as part of a mixed-use building, so that's also something that could be considered. But again, staff does recommend approval of this petition. While it is inconsistent, it does help to add some variety of housing options in the area. It also has the potential to meet some of the goals of housing access as identified by the Corridors of Opportunity West Sugar Creek Playbook, and also as part of that effort as well, they did recommend reducing the number of some of the motel and hotel rooms at the interchange of Sugar Creek and I-85, which is certainly would facilitate that outcome. So while again it is inconsistent, we felt that those goals were important to achieve as a result, and staff again does recommend approval of the petition, and we will take any questions following the petitioner's presentation. Thank you.
Hunter McLeese, you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and council members. Thank you for your time tonight. Got the slides. So I'm Hunter McLeese with Sage Investment Group. We're here tonight, or I'm here tonight for the Charlotte rezone of 1408 and 1416 West Sugar Creek. So this is the parcel, or actually two parcels right here. The one on the south end is actually pretty close to being a derelict property, so our goal is to rezone this and change it into a conforming use of a multifamily. We're going to combine both parcels, 56 and 156 to 212 units in total. Current zoning is the ZGE, with a proposed zoning is the N2C Neighborhood 2 zoning, which will allow us a high density to meet that 212, and we'll have enough parking spaces. I think currently it's got 218 parking spaces, but as we maximize and we can resurface that lot to maximize that as best we can. So we're going to, already spoke on this, but we're going to go to studio and one-bedroom apartments using the existing structure. We don't plan on doing any demolishing of the current building. We're going to update all mechanical, electrical, and plumbing within that property to conform to residential code. So anyway, we'll add sprinklers into the units, and then we also add community-controlled access security gates. So part of our community goals is to, by offering accessible housing options, we can help maintain families and individuals find a place to call home while reducing the financial burden. Property value around repurposed hotel will increase, reduction in transient nature associated with motels. This ability contributes to improved community safety and well-being. So here are a couple of our previous projects. This is in Oklahoma. It was a motel where quite a few gangs and sex trafficking was occurring. And the bottom right are our renderings. And this is actually, we're 97 leased up out of 148 units. This is in a Hosmer district in Tacoma, Washington. We've got about 800 units in this area where, again, it was completely inhabited by gangs, violence, sex traffickers, drugs. And so we went in there and bought 5 to 6 separate properties to basically remodel them and provide attainable housing for local workforce, students, and young professionals. So this is what it looked like afterwards. We use a national contractor, Renew, based out of Dallas, Texas, that work on all of our projects. So for these in the Tacoma district, we're building a.
Thank you very much. If you have anything additional, you can certainly provide it to the clerk, and will be made part of the record and distributed to council. Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you for your comments and providing some insight to your previous projects. Your work actually fits directly in line with the playbook for this corridor in reducing the number of motel rooms. And I in particular like that the sustainable aspect of the work that you do by maintaining the existing buildings, but bringing them up to speed, up to code, and remodeling them. So we've already seen some good work over in this corridor over the last year and a half. And I believe with this particular effort, we'll continue to see that reduction that will reduce, hopefully, the transactional crime that occurs along that corridor by removing these rooms offline. So thank you for your work. Look forward to seeing how this materializes along the corridor of opportunity for West Sugar Creek.
Of course. Thank you.
Ms. Wallington.
Thanks. I just got 2 quick questions. The first one is, I think I saw a picture here, but I want to be clear about this one. You said you were going in to update the MEP, you were adding fire protection, that kind of thing. Are you putting kitchens in each one of these units?
That's correct.
Gotcha. Okay. And then my second question, and maybe we can answer this one offline. I'm just very curious as to how much it costs you, because to Councilmember Anderson's point, this is something that we're super interested in, and there's some other conversations going on as far as converting office, which obviously is very different to residential, but would love to learn more about how you're doing it and how those.
Yeah. So we've explored the office. It is highly expensive, given the MEPs and for HVAC as well. This is a little bit easier because most of the components are in place already. And so we're just moving some plumbing to make that kitchen. But like I said earlier, we use Renew out of Dallas, Fort Worth, and they basically reverse engineer and work with the architects that we have on site. So to answer your question more directly, it could be anywhere from $30,000 to $50,000 per unit to upgrade. Sometimes we've gone up into the $80,000, just depends on what's actually going on. So if you're looking at the Speedway, that's probably about a $40,000 project, whereas the roadway in is probably $27,000, and that's just because of poor property management.
Gotcha. Last 2 questions. Windows. Is there a need to make those windows operable because they're going to residential?
Absolutely. In some counties, there are. It depends on what is recommended by the staff. So we are doing 2 projects down in Columbia. They are not requiring us because these studios are 300 square feet. And so the window is basically right next to the door, so that they found that there was no need. But if there is that need, we do a complete reframe of that unit, and we'll add operable windows.
Interesting. I have many more questions, but look for another day. Thank you. And thank you for
happy to
your work.
answer.
Sure.
Ms. Johnson.
Engineering seat.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And it's nice to meet you in person.
Nice to meet you, too.
When we spoke, we talked about the displacement of long-term occupants in the hotels. And I asked for the numbers. I've also talked to the staff and crisis assistance also. So do you have the numbers of long-term occupants in the roadway and the speedway?
Yeah, absolutely. We don't have the exact number right now. Thankfully, given that I'm in town, I'm going to go on site tomorrow to get that exact number from management. So the speedway is a little bit harder to work with and get what's actually going on with that property, whereas the roadway in, they're much more manageable and willing to work with us to get us that number. So I will have that to you by tomorrow.
Okay. So the last number that I got was between 29 and 37.
Correct.
And that's at one of the hotels, right?
That's on the speedway. That's
Speedway.
correct.
And is that rooms or that's actual occupants? So could that be like 37 rooms that
Occupants.
include families with
Yep.
children? Okay.
From my understanding, that's occupants. Our operations team has been handling that side of things.
Okay. It's just important to me that people who are living in those places know as soon as possible. So if they're in the Speedway or roadway in on Sugar Creek, they should expect someone to come to the hotel within a few days to give them the plan, or what is the plan?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've done this quite a few times in the past. We've got about 10 to 15 projects going on, so this is not new for us. We're already working with Warren Wooten from the Affordable Housing Department, and we are also exploring options with, I'm going to blank on their names.
Is it it's Crisis or one of those?
It's the Adore, and then, just bear with me one second. There we go. Roof Above, There's Still Hope, and Charlotte Family Housing. So we vet all of our property management companies as they move in and are helping us through this process of reconstruction, adaptive reuse. And during that time, we give them our high-level business plan. From there, they take that and they reach out to these local either nonprofits or affordable housing, and we take our time to relocate them as best as we can.
And what is the timeline? Do you know?
So our expected close date for right now is January 31st. So as long as we get full approval from you all, then that's when we'll let everybody know at the site that we're going to be pushing forward to relocate those individuals.
January 31st. And your previous projects in Tacoma,
Yep.
where you remodeled, I think you said around 800 units, or did I hear the number?
So 5 separate properties, in total about 800 units in the Hosmer district. That's correct.
In those properties, were there long-term occupants in those hotels
Yes.
as well? And I noticed you used the word accessible housing. Are any of these 800 units, do you know if they were accessible to the folks that were there before?
As far when we do the reconstruction?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as they meet our leasing requirements and have the sufficient income. A lot of them, or some of them, do meet those standards and release basically with us once they'll move for a little bit, or we have moved them to other properties that we own while we update this one. And then once they go through the screening process, they'll move back in.
Okay. All right, well, as my colleague said, this does fit the playbook. And I know that there are issues with that hotel, so it's a safety issue. And so I look forward to working together.
Yeah,
Thank
we're
you.
excited to work with you all as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Move to close.
Ms. Anderson.
Just one quick comment. We were with Mayor Woodard from Tacoma last week, and I know that affordable housing is something that they focus on significantly in Tacoma. So we'll follow up to make sure that all of your projects are in good standing. But Mayor Woodard is a good advocate for affordable housing out in Tacoma. Thank you. Move to close.
I got one quick question. There's a little trapezoidal section that isn't part of the petition, but it looks like it's an active piece of the property that abuts that campus place type. Is there any?
Are you talking about?
Yeah.
So that is actually part of the parcel from my understanding and talking with the city and our architect. Currently, we've got, and the water company. I'm going to blank on the water company. We're working with the water company.
Charlotte Water?
Sorry?
Charlotte Water?
Charlotte Water. I talked to so many of them, it's hard for me to keep them straight. And they are working with us to an easement to pick up this part of the land as well. Just to aid in water runoff. So they've had issues getting in touch with the current owner of the Speedway on the south end there and working through a normal process of taking care of that, because if you can see, there's a little bit of water buildup here.
I was actually talking about that.
Oh, yes, up here.
Yeah. It seems like it's part of the parcel. It seems like it's.
It is part of the parcel. I'm not sure why this is mapped like that, but yeah.
Is there any
So
reason?
zoning made a mistake?
Doesn't happen.
I mean, maybe it's my mistake, but
It actually looks like it is its own small parcel, and it does say ownership, City of Charlotte, so we'll certainly look into that, and if we need to amend it to capture it all, we certainly will. But I'll reach out to the folks that we've been coordinating with on the city side on this one to see what's going on with that little piece. Yep.
Yes. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yep.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Second.
Any discussion of that motion? All in favor?
I've got some discussion, just
yeah.
briefly,
Come
just
on now.
to take a moment just to thank you for your service at our meetings here. It's been great having you operate and run these zoning meetings for us, and we certainly will miss your leadership in this capacity. So look forward to seeing what's next for you, but just want to appreciate you for all the work you've done. And you missed an opportunity. We had a rezoning program manager role open. Knew all about the alignment rezoning stuff. We could, could have carried this in a different role, but I just wanted to acknowledge your leadership for these meetings, and it's been very much appreciated on our side. So thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you all very much.
Don't miss
Thank
you, buddy.
Thank you. I will say, the thing that I was most nervous about coming into this job was land use. It was. I think y'all know me. I like to say what I mean and mean what I say, and I don't like to make decisions that I'm unsure about. So I'm grateful, likewise, to staff, the committee, and my colleagues for support as we figure this out together. So thank you all very much, and with that, I'll make a motion.
Could you
to
give the
adjourn.
rest of your comments to the clerk? We'll make sure.
Somebody hit the buzzer, yeah.
Motion to adjourn.
Like a member of the public
All in
already.
favor? Hold on.
Close the public hearing.
Oh, we got to close the public hearing.
Motion to, you're right. All in favor of closing the public hearing? Please raise your hand. All opposed? That's unanimous in favor.
Second.
Motion to adjourn, second.
Second, I second, okay. All right, okay. You're welcome.